How do we get the link here? Share. Copy link. Okay.
YouTube and send it.
Oh, my YouTube. I gotta go to.
WhatsApp.
How do I? Oh, hold on. Let's see.
You can also come to my phone now.
I don't know if my phone's gonna fit though. Oh, there we go.
Using my phone now.
No.
Oh, I have
All right, you want to put this somehow that it's gonna stay?
What's this? Live. YouTube?
Right?
Why do I see my thing say go live with Shimon Salazar? Unmute microphone. There we go.
You guys open the cake up?
Oh yeah, very good.
Very good. Plus, there's another one.
Open the cake up. All right, we're about 3 seconds away. So if you want to say something and you need to cut it, you have about 3 seconds.
Okay, so we're gonna do B'siyat Shemai tonight. We'll do Hagalas Kelim, and then we're gonna do Pasakum and then Bishalakum. And we're gonna try to move quickly, and we're gonna try to finish before Nate's. Wait before Nate's.
Like 12.
Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, kacha. Like this. So again, so the whole Yisod. Oh, I forgot to bring you guys something, but I'll show it to you. I'll just tell you about it. I get it. Like this. So the whole Yisod of Hagalas Kelim. When do you need a kasher kli? So we said like this. We said that when a kli becomes tummy, or when it becomes treif, so the flavor goes in. We said after 24 hours, what happens to that flavor? That flavor is no tam gam. So once it's no tam gam, what's the din? The din is that it can't aser any one of your kelim. Still, Chazal came and they said that you still need a kasher such a kli. Why? Because where it goes there, so that's basically the yesod of all of our hagalas kelim, and that is within the first 24 hours it's going to be a deraisa. After 24 hours, it's going to become into a deraban. Then we have the din of kibolo kach polto, which means what? That the way the flavor entered the kli is the same way that it's going to come out as well. So we saw 5 different heat levels. We saw that there's we saw that there's liban, there's kli rishon, which is agala. There's Iroi, Klisheni, and then Sony, and something that's cold. And we're going to go through every single one of them. I'm going to see. Right, within Liban is Liban Kamer and Liban Kas. So let's start. Let's go. Right, so let's just read Simon Kol Chaval Sival. לוקח כלים ישנים מן עובד כוכבים גדל שנשתמש בהם עובד כוכבים כך הוא שרן. לפיכך, הלוקח כלי תשמיש ישנים שנשתמש בהם בצונן כגון כוסות, צלוחיות וכיוצא בהן מדיחן וצריך לשפשפן היטב במים בשעת הדחה כדי להסיר ולמרק האיסור של גביהם ואחר כך שוטפן במים ומטבילם והם מותרים. Basically, sorry, I just read the wrong one. No, I didn't. No. Right, basically the way that it comes in is the way that it's going to come out. And then we discussed how do you view each kli? Do we say that do we go after Rov Tashmisho, or do we go after the one time when it reached a high level? So, for example, you have a spoon. This is, I think, an example. You have a spoon that you usually use to eat your soup with. So, usually it comes in contact with what? With a kli sheni. And then once by accident it was a milchik spoon. And then once by accident you mixed your fleishik pot with it. So then how do you kasher that spoon?
Well, that's different.
That became true. So one second.
Because it's
One second.
Shiurim and
One second. Before we get that, so let's go back to that. Or do we go after that one time when it was used as a kli rishon, and then it's going to need hagal? So how do we pass him? So the Shulchan Aruch in this siman we quoted a lot from siman Taf Nun Aleph, which is the siman in Ilchos Pesach, which talks about kashering. So over there, what are the mechaber paskin? The mechaber paskin that you go after rov tashmisha, which means you go after the majority of its usage. So therefore, in such a case, if you have a regular spoon that was milchik and it stayed milchik, you just used it once for a higher level of heat. Now you want to make it fleshik. It's enough just to put it in kli sheni, and it's going to be mutter. The Ramah over there says that no, you go after the highest level that it ever encountered with heat level. So then we asked on the Shulchan Aruch, and it's the opinion of the Rashba. How does that work? How does that make any sense? Why would you go after rov tashmishu? If we have the din of kibolo kach poto, that the way the flavor went in is the way the flavor goes out, so then why in the world would it be enough to go after the majority of the heat level that it ever encountered if one time it reached a heat level of a kli rishon? So the way for that flavor to come out is going to be how? Through a kli rishon, right? So what do we answer? So the Rashba answers that once it's after 24 hours. And after 24 hours is what we started with. We're going to say, right, it's no sin tam of gam already. So when Chazal said that after 24 hours you need a kasher, they also said simultaneously that you go after rov tashmishon. However, when does this apply? This is what you were saying. This only applies when I use something for milchik, and then I use it at a higher level for milchik as well. But if, let's say that was a milchik spoon, and then I used it once on a fleshik kli rishon to mix the pot, what would be the din in such a case?
Then you would
In such a case, then in order to kasher it, what am I going to need to do? I'm going to have to use there's chairs of heroes. I'm going to have to use a kli rishon. Why? Because this makes sense. Is what the Chazon Ish was saying, that what's the whole reason you need to kasher it? The reason you need to kasher it is because it became treif, and since it became treif through kli rishon, that's how you're going to have to kasher it. Yes.
Yeah. Is that like kul alma? Because I remember when I learned it that like kind of distinction I didn't
exist.
That way. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
Yisvar, it makes sense also, right?
Yeah, but again, it's still 24 hours, so yeah.
From what I saw, yes.
And with Shari Shurim, because when you get it from a goy, you don't know what heat level they use. That's why you go with general. You buy it from a used dish from a goy, you don't know what they might have used it with. So therefore, you just go with rov tashmisho because you don't.
It's meaning also
because you don't know. You
correct.
don't know where. You
Also,
don't
if
eat over the Jew, anyways. You don't
right
know.
for the same thing. I mean, let's say it's a treif pot, and it was always treif, or it was a treif spoon, and then they used it once for something on a higher heat level. There also you would go after rov tashmisho. Okay, fine. So again, then what's the difference? So then we spoke about Hagala and Liban. So what's the difference between Hagala and Liban? So there's a few differences, but one of the mechanics of how it works is first is the temperature. But besides the temperature, by Hagala, when you're doing Hagala on a kli, what happens to the kli that's absorbed? It comes out. But when you're doing Liban, what happens? It burns it right away. So therefore, we saw a few nafkaminas. One is, do you need to wait 24 hours? No, you don't need to wait 24 hours by Liban. Why? Because it burns it in the spot itself. That was one of the main nafkaminas that we saw. And then within Liban, we saw that there's two different levels of Liban. There's Liban Chamar and there's Liban Kal. So Liban Chamar is what's called is until nitzotzot coming out, until there's sparks flying out. We said, why today are there no sparks? Because the metal is a lot more condensed. But why by? And then what's Liban Kal? Liban Kal is adshe kash nisraf, which
from
means
the inside.
From the inside of the pot, and the Taz, he said, what's that heat level? He said that's the heat level of Yad Suledet Bo, which is anywhere between 46 and 52 around degrees Celsius. That's the din of Yad Suledet Bo. Fine. So then we said, when do you use Liban Chamar and when do you use Liban Kal? So we said that when it's Hetei Rabbah, this was like the general assumption over here. When it was Hetei Rabbah, meaning when it absorbed something that's mutter. For example, it was milchik, and now you want to make it into fleshik, which we saw in the Magen Avram. They could only do when on Erev Pesach. So it absorbed milchik, and now you want to make it into fleshik. So milchik isn't something that's aser. milchik is something that's inherently mutter. So what's the din? So the din is that it's enough to do liban kal, because liban kal is even something that needs liban. It's going to be enough to do such a thing. But
That you're not sure if it was milk as a flesh. You haven't used it in like a couple of years, and you're not sure. You have to wait till Pesach to kasher.
so there are ways to get around it, but me'ikra din with the it's like a gzeir of the Magen Avram that he says to wait till Pesach. Yeah. But if you don't know, it could be that you have less. There's more of a tzad to be mikol.
But the Rav
You
said
can
there's
shape it up and then.
What? Right.
but the Rav said there's something about like a year. After 1 year,
No, this is he's saying within a year, or even we don't pass him like that la'alach anyways, right? That's a chacham tzivit, which we don't. You only use that with the tzir. Fine.
The three things, right?
What?
There was three things.
Right. That was the Ramosha. Excellent. Okay. What about like this? Can you do libun on half the clean? Right. Let's say it was a fork that I stuck a milchig fork onto a steak that was on the grill. Now I need to do libun on this fork. So do I need to do libun on the entire fork or just on the part that went in? Machlokas. What's the machlokas? Right, excellent. So the Rabbah, so this was in Siv. כלי מתכת אף על פי שיש אומרים שנשתמש בו איסור, במקצתו נאסר כולו משום דחם מקצתו חם כולו, אבל לעניין הכשרו, לא עלה לו הכשר לזה שולחן ערוך סבב, עד שיכשיר כולו, בין לעניין עגלה ובין לעניין ליבון. Meaning, both for libun and for עגלה, says the Shulchan Aruch, you need to do on the whole thing. Says the Rabbah, ודווקא נשתמש בכולו, אבל אם ידוע שלא נשתמש רק בקצתו, כבולו, כך פולטו, which is a big kula of the Rabbah. I think the Shach says that it's better to, yeah, the Shach said that lechatchila you should do liban on the entire thing, right? But this would be a big nafkamina ledina, is if it's something that's really big that only part of it became treif, and you know for sure that it only reached that level, will be enough. Whether we're talking about liban or we're talking about a gull, it's enough to do that half of the pot, that half of the fork, that half of whatever, according to the Ramah, according to the Shulchan Aruch, you're gonna have to do the entire thing.
But only what about the non-metal parts? You just melt it. I mean,
So the amount of the metal parts, we'll get to the middle. We'll get to, right. If it's going to get ruined, so then you can't do it. Correct. Fine. Now, for Liban, do you need to wait 24 hours? So what do we say? No. Do you need to remove the rust? By Liban. By Liban, do you need to remove the rust? Why? Again, because it's destroying the thing on the
No matter
inside.
what
Now,
reason is that you have to remove it.
exactly. So now let's get to Hagala. So we said, now we discussed Hagala in detail. So how do you do Hagala? So again, we said Hagala is that the flavor that's inside needs to come out. So you have to make sure that there's no chatzitza, right? There's nothing that's stopping the flavor from coming out. So then we saw machlokas when it comes to rust or anything like that. What are the reasons why you need to remove the rust? So the first reason that we saw is because we're worried that food might get stuck underneath the rust or underneath like the thing that's stuck over there. And the second reason is that if it's something that was added after you use the pot, so then it's going to act as a barrier from letting the flavor that's inside come out. So we saw what's going to be a nafkamina. A nafkamina is if you have the rust on the inside or on the outside. If it's on the outside, so then we're not worried that food got stuck there, right? Because food is usually on the inside of the pot. But if it's acting as a barrier, so then you're going to have to do libun on that on that section because libun burns it, and hagalo it won't work according to that opinion. It's not going to work because it's going to act as a barrier. That's what I told you that a friend of mine who was in a Pesach program, he showed me that there was these huge pots that he was kashering, and they had a metal piece that they burned on top of it that said chalavi and besari. It was a whole piece that went on. So he said, usually, how do they kasher those pots? Through hagala. But he said, what do I do with those sections? Right. So in those sections, the din is going to be, if you want to be, which is how we paskin that lechatchila you should do libun on that section, even though it's on the outside of the pot.
Even though it's on the outside?
Even though it's outside of the pot. Why? Because it's acting as a barrier from the flavor that's inside to come out.
Even if it's on the outside?
Correct. Right? That's the nafkamina. Right? We're not worried about food getting stuck, chametz getting stuck there, but we're worried about it acting as a barrier to coming out. So that's the first thing we said that you need to do. You need to make sure when you're doing hagala in your house, let's say it's on a fork, let's say it's on a pot, the first thing you need to do, look at it. Make sure it's clean. Make sure there's nothing that's stuck there, right? We saw the Ramah in Hilchos Pesach that says that if there's like a little bit of black that's there that you tried to get off and you couldn't get off, that's fine, right? Because that became already part of the pot. But something that's like a chatzitz, that's the first thing you should do to take it off. The second thing we saw that you need to do is to wait 24 hours. Why do you need to wait 24 hours by Hagala, but not by Liban? Again, Liban, it destroys the flavor. Hagala, what happens? The flavor comes out. So if the flavor is coming out, so then there's, right, you can trace the water.
which trace the pot, which trace the other pot.
Correct? And then it can come back in. And then if it's something that's milchik and fleshik, let's say I have a milchik pot, or a milchik plate, or fork, then I'm putting in a fleshik pot, so then we saw that there's two reasons why the water, either the water is going to become treif right away, or because they're going to touch one another, and then it's going to become treif. So therefore, you need to wait 24 hours. What?
Unless you have a really, really big pot. It's called the Shiur.
Right, exactly. The only exception to this is if you have a pot that's 60 times bigger than the fork or the thing that you're kashering. So then, which is not so uncommon unless you're doing a whole bunch, right?
Is that why you put it into cold water after?
So then we saw Rashi's Chomer. Rashi's Chomer said that right afterwards you should put it into cold water, is because we're worried about the drops that are on the outside that are going to go back inside.
That makes no sense at all.
Yes, correct.
Because if it's going to go inside, it goes inside immediately. And if
Correct.
it's not going to go inside, it's not.
So it's more of like a chashash that we're not sure when it's going to go in. So Rashi said you might as well just get that cold water off, like put it in cold water right away, so that you know that it won't. Meaning, if it hasn't happened yet, you know for sure it didn't happen. I think that's the svara.
Just a question. So when you do a gala, it's most definitely, as you said, if it goes in, it goes in, like it goes back in. But so in that case, would the reason why it's kosher be that even though, let's say it's after 24 hours, we know that, but that the takana doesn't apply to a case where it came out and it went back in? Because you could say, okay, it went back in, and therefore you still have the chiyuv of it's still treif according to it's still treif derabanan. So why is it different from a food that from a kli that's ben yomo?
What do you mean? If you waited 24 hours.
Yeah.
So now the flavor is nosi tam lefgam.
Right.
So once the flavor comes out, that nosi tam lefgam can't aser your pot. Right? Meaning
because it never came as a treif.
Correct.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first thing. First thing, make sure there's no chatzitza. Number 2 is wait 24 hours. Number 3, we saw in this probably the most crucial part of Agala that most people do not know, and that is make sure that the water is at a constant rolling boil. If it's not at a rolling boil, you went in the jacuzzi and had a nice bath, but your pot is still straight. And then the fourth thing we said is what you said is put in cold water, and we saw that b'diavad you don't need to do that. And then the Ramah over here said don't drink the water. The water is going to become asur, and the Gra argued on that because he said that it's not varna.
But there's no issue because there are people who say you can't like shower after the mikvah. See, because
That's something else.
No, but even washing it after doesn't make it mean that people think, well, it's not the whole.
Yeah, that wouldn't apply there because we're not. It's not tama and tara. What we're dealing with here is just getting the flavor out, right? Okay, so that was the fourth thing that we saw. Those were the four things. No rust. Wait 24 hours. Water should be at a hot, constant boil. And then the best thing to do is to place it in cold water. What happens if your pot is too big and you can't put it into a massive vat of bubbling water? So what are your options? Option number 1 is do half and half. Option number 2 is the stone. How does the stone work?
Kirui on the stone.
What? Well, so there's 2 things to stone. Exactly, right? So option number 1 is that you fill it up all the way to the top with water till it's boiling hot. And then you have to drop in a boiling hot stone. Why do you have to drop in a boiling hot stone? Keep the water boiling, right? And then that's option number 2. Option number 3 is correct. You put a hot boiling stone on it, and then you pour water on top of the stone, and you move the stone all around the pot in order to make it
Can
thick.
you
What?
explain how it works? I don't understand.
Yeah. So the problem is that Eroi cools down the water, right? When it's spilling over. So the water is cooling down. So since the water is cooling down, we need to find a way for it to reach a higher heat level. So what you do is you take a stone that you stuck in the oven, and now it's boiling hot.
Right.
I've seen people do this on their countertops on Erev Pesach. So they make sure it's boiling hot, and then once it's boiling hot, and you're pouring already boiling hot water, that stone is going to heat up the water to the status of a kli rishon, and then when the water is spilling off the stone onto the rest of the pot. So it's as if you did irui. It's as if you did hagala on those sections. That's how it's gonna. That's how the.
That's gonna be the bottom of the pot. So that's gonna be the sides. You can't.
So then you would have to do it on the sides. Well, you would hold it on top, and you would pour it, or put the pot sideways. Put the pot sideways.
Hold the stone with like a finger.
Yeah, you don't hold the stone with the hand. Yeah.
Oh, you put the pot sideways in it. Oh, I see.
And
You can hold the stone with his hand.
Exactly.
If you can hold it with your hands on.
Exactly. Okay, then we spoke about, if you remember, Baal Teshakatsu. Right, so we saw it. So this was like a Geshmaka Lumdish shtick that we did, which was what's the Isser? So we saw Machlokas. The Beis Yosef quoted from the Orchos Chaim, who said that if you cook something that was disgusting or repulsive in your pot, you're going to need a kasher your pot. And the Shulchan Aruch said that the Beis Yosef basically said that you don't need to. There's no din of kashering pots and Baal Tashak. So we saw that this was a halacha l'maisa question when there was Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey, and people's basements were flooded, and they were flooded also with, like, the sewage broke, and then they had all their pots there that they wanted to know that sat there for over 24 hours. And we said that once something sits in a liquid for 24 hours, it's bulak, right? Kavish kamivushal. So the din is that it would. So the question was, do they need a kasher or not? So according to the Orchos Chaim, you don't need a kasher. Yeah, sorry, you do need a kasher. But according to Beis Yosef, you do not need a kasher. Then we saw another two machlokasim. We saw is the machloka is bal teshaktu, right? When it's talking about disgusting food, is that an isser d'oraisa or d'rabanan? And the second machloka we saw is it subjective or objective. For example, I love herring and you hate herring. So for you to eat herring, is that bal teshaktu or not? So that we saw from who was it? I don't remember who it was, but he saw. But basically, what he said was that you have to all three machlukas are l'shitasa. Meaning, if you hold that the isser of Baal Tashaktu is an isser d'oraisa, so then you're also going to hold that it's not subjective, rather it's objective. Meaning, whatever is gross is gross. It's not telling on to me. Why? Because the isser d'oraisa becomes an isser in the chafza. Right? Most isser d'oraisa are isser in the chafza that this thing is usser. So if this thing is usser, too bad that you like it. It inherently is usser because we go after the majority of the people. And if you hold that it itself is usser, and then you cook it in your pot, so what's the din? So now you need to kasher your pot, because what did you cook in your pot?
Isur.
Something isser, like it's like cooking pork. But if you hold that the isser about the shaktu when it comes to this thing is isser d'rabanan, so what's the isser on? It's not on the piece of herring. Piece of herring is the gross. It's I'm not allowed to do something that's repulsive to me. I'm not allowed to do something that's gross. So if it's an isser on me, so then this thing isn't inherently usser. And if it's not inherently usser, so then what's the isser? The isser becomes subjective, meaning it depends on the person itself. And therefore, when it's cooked in the pot, so the din is, since it's an isser d'rabanan, and it's not an isser that's a usser, so then the din is that it's going to become mutter, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch passes, that's not going to be usser. And the shita who was is from the Divrei Shalom. Do you know what that is? I don't remember what that was. Okay, so that's the Divrei.
Wait, just a quick.
Yudeikin. Yeah, Yudeikin. Yes.
So then why is it called Baal Tashakit? So is that?
So then it's an asmachta. Then that's what it means. It's an asmachta in the pasuk that he said that. Fine. Okay, so that was Hagala. Good. We know how to do Hagala now.
Just what would be a doraita? Like, is there a mitzvah Baal Tashakit?
There is a mitzvah about the shaksu. What's the pasuk? Did I bring it down?
Right, but
I think the rest of the pasuk is beremetz arumesh al haaretz or something like that, right? It's referring to bugs. It's referring to bugs over there, and that's what it means. And then the Gemara says that it applies to other things as well.
Out the shot.
Right, but it says out the shak. I think it says bekol remesh arumesh al haaretz or something like that. I think that's what the thing says. Okay, so that was about the shak. That was Hagala. Now, how do you do irui? So we saw that there's two very important dinim that you need to make sure of when you're doing irui. Irui, first thing. Really three, but make sure the water is hot. Make sure it bubbles. Once it bubbles, you have to
continuous
pouring. It has to be iru shalon ifsaka kiluach, which we saw is basically a constant flow and not stopping. And the third, and this is the most important thing, is that the thing that you're doing irui, does it need to be dry or not?
Yes.
It doesn't need to be dry. Does hagala, when you're doing hagala in a pot, does it need to be dry? No. Why? Because anyways, you have to wait to reach a boil afterwards, right? But here, when we're dealing with irui, where there's nothing that's going to be reheating it as well, if your countertop is the thing that you're doing irui on, if your countertop is wet, so when you're pouring water on it, what's going to happen? It's going to cool it down, and it's not going to reach the hot air. It's not going to reach that level. Let's say you have a huge pot.
But in theory, if your countertop had been tracked
with liquid on top of it in a chanami, why?
This would be fine.
Correct, because kibolo kachpulto. Right. But it's just the reason why we say not to, because it's hard to gauge how much liquid was on it and how much, you know.
Or if it was a davar gush that fell down, right?
Maybe the davar gush that fell on, so then it'll be b'pashas. You can also do irui.
So when
Right.
countertop has to be 24 hours too, right?
But you couldn't say like if it's wet it cooled off in the same way that something gets spilled cooled off as it poured.
Correct, but meaning there's a machlokas we're going to see by Hilchot Shabbos if davar gush is mevashel or not. So I think it's a marshal who says that a davar gush could be mevashel. But it depends where it is. Some people say if it's in a cliche, it can be mevashel. If it's in a cliche, it's not going to be mevashel.
Can you steam clean it then?
Steam cleaning
it's hotter than it's steam.
So
you take an iron and just.
So a lot of people, a lot of poskim today say that you could. That if there's condensation on it, it would be enough.
What about a hair dryer?
But it depends. Hair dryer, no.
You doesn't get hot enough?
I don't know. It's dry.
Oh, because it's dry, it has to be
Dry
wet.
heat,
Right.
yeah.
Has to be
Unless-
wet.
So I was taught that, for example, at Sfaradim, we really make Karadin never ever have to kasher countertops because of Rav Tashmisho. So that seems to support what I said before, that even if you draped it with like
So it depends. When,
It
meaning,
depends on the countertop.
when are you counting your countertops? Most people count the countertop on Erev Pesach.
Yeah, right.
Right. So in such a case where it says Teira Bala,
Right.
where we're talking
Maybe
about,
that's when I learned it.
that's why you wouldn't
Okay.
need to. Right.
Depends
No,
on
but
the countertop, no?
yeah, now
But
that
even-
I think of it.
But even when you're
like,
count, even
like
when you're
getting into a new apartment, I was told like Mikaradin, you don't really have to cash.
again, so the same thing is there also, because when you're in when it was always used for treif,
Right.
so then we'll also go after Rov Tashmisha. Let's say you have a pot that you bought from a
Right.
guy, a spoon that you bought from a guy, and 99% of the time it was used for a kli rishon, and once it was used for liba.
Right,
So what's
okay.
the din? The din is going to be that it's going to be
Yeah.
that you still have to go.
We're
with the
assuming
treif.
that
Alex, you think there are more chairs?
We're assuming that he's always eating treif,
What?
right? We're assuming he's always eating treif.
We're assuming that he's always eating treif,
Kohen
yeah.
don't always eat treif necessarily, or even.
In Israel, yeah.
Yeah, but Shari Shiurim also. But how do you ever go
No,
eating for
in a
pork?
Chanami. No, he mistama. He was eating non-kosher food. You assume that whatever he's eating, not always, but you go after
But
Rov
he eats
Tashmisha.
cereal and.
How's it going? Hey, it's really. What's wrong?
The countertop also has to be left
What?
for 24 hours.
Someone's getting chairs in a minute, or you can go inside and see if there are
Right?
chairs.
The
What?
countertop also has to be left for 24 hours.
Correct, correct. Also for here, you should wait 24 hours. We're out of chairs? Hashem yishmor alenu. Okay, there are some chairs coming out. Okay. So that.
The question about sink.
What was the question with the
I
sink?
don't know, because Pesach, then you can do the boiling hot stone or red hot stone and water, etc. But minastam, you could just pour water directly from a still boiling kettle. And it would
To
be
do
fine, 'cause
correct,
that's what you
but
use.
the Ramah Hilchos Pesach, if I remember correctly, the Ramah Hilchos Pesach says to be machmir in case you accidentally put a pot on directly if it was like a kli rishon that was wet that had chametz on and you put it directly on the countertop. So I think by Pesach we're machmir to do the stone as well. The Ikra, I think most people are machmir, but there are definitely a lot of people that just do the pouring without the stone in the house. That's what we do in my house. In my house growing up, we just use the pouring hot water. But in the Ramah, if I remember correctly, he brings down that you should still use the stone. Okay, let's go, guys. Want a beer? A drink? Which one?
You should have.
No.
You would have left hours away.
Oh, I thought you were washing hands because you just went to the mikvah.
I thought they, I thought the Yerushalayim guys wash hands before the Shiur.
Right,
Like,
they say, yeah.
down the block.
Oh, man. Where? Where did you get a flat?
On the tires.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you now the dummy on?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Serious nefesh. Amazing. Okay. Fine. So that was we did Liban, we did Hagala. Liban, basically, what do you need to do? So we spoke about two different levels. If you're doing Liban Cham or Liban Kal, we spoke about Hagala, the four different ways to do Hagala, right? And then we spoke about Iroi, and then Klisheni. So if you remember, those who were here in the first section, so we spoke about whether even a Klisheni is Boleh or Machler or not. And we saw the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, and then over there was a Taz that was Machler just a little bit. But Meisa, Mikra Din, if something is hot, if something is used in a Klisheni, you can kasher it just by Klisheni again because the din is Kiburo Kach Bulto. And then we discussed the different types of
There's a note.
oh yeah, there's cake also, really good brownies. Pass the guys. They just switched a tire. They need it's not fresh. It's 15 minutes old. Before it was 6 minutes old. Yeah, make a lishiv. You're in a second. So like this. So we spoke about different pots. So how do you know which kalim you can kasher or not?
Call the rabbi.
Call the rabbi. If you want to actually learn and not rely everything on the rabbi. What?
SCP. Go to SCP.
Right, exactly. So what?
Pottery was out.
Pottery's out. How do we know?
You have to break it because.
What?
It comes straight.
Where do we know you need to break into pots? From where? From Nosa. Excellent. So this is what I forgot to bring, which I was going to bring. This Holomoy. This is my nephew, Eli, Vainot. And we went together, not just with him, but with our whole family. We went to Shiloh. You guys, everyone here been to Shiloh? Okay, so Shiloh is very close. So what they showed us was that in one of like obviously the question that everyone there who comes in, being Israeli, right? How do you know? So one of the big riots that he had that is the area is because all the surrounding mountains and in that area had tons of shattered pottery. Now, why is that? Because the din was in the Mikdash, in Shiloh, there was no chomot. It wasn't like Yerushalayim that had the walls of Yerushalayim. So any kachei kalim, any mizbeach, any carbon that you brought, if you were able to see the Mishkan in Shiloh, you were able to eat the carbon that you had. So what did people do when they cooked from pottery and you were finished with it? Right. So after a day, the flavor that's inside is no sir, and you can't kosher it. So what do? You have to break it. So all the surrounding mountains and that area had tons and tons and tons of broken and shattered pottery. Wow. So I actually brought back some of it to show you guys.
Is that legal?
No, they had tons, and I just forgot to bring it to the shiur. But I thought it was amazing. It was very cool. So the first thing, so pottery you can't kasher. What about metal?
Yes.
You could kasher. How do you know you can kasher it?
Because that's the
Because that's the pasuk, right? It says v'chol kli zav and when v'chule v'chule v'chule. The din is that you can kasher those things. Glass. What about glass? So we saw the video, right? What we see in the video, that glass is made from sand. So that's like a pottery type of thing. But then it can be remelted and it could. So is it buleh or not? So the Shulchan Aruch was of the opinion that it's not buleh at all. It's not buleh and it's not maflit. So therefore you can use it for fleshik, you can use it for milchik, you can use it for treif, and then the next day you can use it yourself for kosher as well, or 10 minutes later, right? Just make sure it's clean. The Rabbah there says that no, that you can't. Why not?
You can eat. You can have a ham sandwich.
You can't eat ham, but I'm saying.
What? You can use a glass plate with ham on it.
Even though your dog.
Yeah, according to Shulchan Aruch, what's the difference? What's the difference?
You can keep your mouth.
You think that would be like, Fine. Let's start from the beginning. Gracious Barlow Fine. So glass. So we saw because according to the Shulchan Aruch, what's the din? It's not boleh and it's not mafli. According to the Ramah, you can't use it on. It was by Hilchos Pesach where he says that you can't use it, and not only you can't use it, you can't kasher it. So therefore, something that was used for chametz, you made lasagna, let's say in this dish right here, what would be the din? You can't kasher it, and you can't even use it. So then we saw a zera emes. So zera emes was there be Shmuel HaKohen or something, right? Where he, which is very interesting because the name Yishmael is our cousin, right? And people don't really like him so much anymore. But there was right. So at a certain point in history, the Jews stopped giving the name Yishmael. But right, Ismail. You were gonna name your son Ismail, right? So
Before Muslims started.
correct.
Before Muhammad.
Before exactly.
He was the 1700s.
What?
He was the
He was the
1700s.
1700s. Right. He was a little bit after. So again, so what did he say? He said that if you look at Yain Nesach, there the Ramah says that if you have wine that was in glass for over 24 hours, what's the din? You can use it for whatever it is. So he says, you see, that maybe the whole chumrah of the Ramah that a glass isn't boleh or mafle. When is that by? That's all by Hilchos Pesach, by night by other things. But then we saw different achronim who said that din is only going to be that din might only be by like a glass cup, but actually cooking, like if you would use this Pyrex glass thing to make lasagna that's cheese, and then the next day to make lasagna that's meat. That's going to be asar. And we saw that's what the majority of the Ashkenazi poskim said, that you should not use glass for both hot and cold. However, a teacup that's made out of glass, you can serve at a milchik meal and at a fleshik meal, or a teacup that you're putting milk inside. You made a coffee with it, and then afterwards you want to eat a soup inside of it, or something like that. If it's in a klisheni, so there a lot of the achronim said that it's going to be mutter. Even for Ashkenazim, because if you're somech on the zera emes. But basically, this we ended off by saying, ask your Rav, ask your local Orthodox Rav what he does. I personally at home, I try not to cook milchik and fleshik in the same glass dish. If it's in a klisheni, so then I'll use it for both. What?
Well, it's a cooking, you sure can't do.
So cooking, there are some people today that'll tell you, glass is not boleh, and like they'll take the zera emes and they'll spend it the whole life. Even for Ashkenazim. What?
Is not a problem.
Some do, some don't. It depends on who you ask.
If you need extra glass cups, just go to our crowd. They are.
Exactly.
What is this? Why do you say Pyrex is glass?
Correct. Fine. What about plastic? So we saw Ramosha kind of said that plastic isn't boleh. Tzitz Eliezer says that you could kasher it, that it's boleh and maflik. And then we saw Tzion Abashol, who said a very interesting thing. He says that what was the din by a kli charis? Kli charis, why can't you do libun on it? So theoretically you could. Technically you can. We're just worried that what's going to happen.
You're going to ruin it.
When you put it back inside, it's going to going to get broken. So therefore, when you're putting it back inside, you're not really going to do it.
Right.
So therefore, so Reb Tzina Mishal said, he said the same thing is going to apply with plastic that's not a strong plastic, right? If you have like those Osharad Tupperwares that you need a kasha, you're putting that in a bubbling hot thing, you pull it out in a minute, it's going to be gone. So in something like that, he says to do a gal and something like that, you shouldn't do it. Because why? Because we're worried that you're not going to leave it in long enough that it's going to be at a constant rolling boil in order to kasha. So that was by plastic.
That's
What?
a poison. I mean, to have the melting.
That's
in
also
there.
Correct. Yes.
That's a minor problem.
Now, what about porcelain? So porcelain, we saw, is it like glass or not? The most opinions, most of the acronym are the opinion that it's like charis, and therefore since it's like charis, you can't kasher. And that's the opinion of Ramosha. However, we saw the tshuva of the Moshe that someone came to him and said that what? That it was him, or he had a family member that was the Baal tshuva, and it was in use for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So and it was super expensive, right? So you wanted to know what?
12 months.
And also 12 months, right? So there were there were three tziruf and there was a tzarf. 1, 12-month fast, which was like the chacham tzvi. 2, maybe porcelain is like glass, and 3, he said that like the Baal Iter, that you could kasher even porcelain by doing hagala on it 3 times. So therefore says Ramosha. So we didn't get into that, but it's based on a gemara. It's based on a gemara that if you can do it 3 times or not. But basically that's one sheet in the Rishonim that says that it's enough. So he says in order to kasher this porcelain dish that they wanted to do, that's the best thing. That's the best thing to do.
What about normal plates
Yeah.
that you can put in a kiln? Is how some people kasher them to put in the oven that the pottery is made in.
Right. So if you do it like that, it's going to be mutter.
That's okay, because then. That's
However, you have to make sure that it's going to be. We're worried that you won't put it in for long enough, or you won't put it in. So that's why we say that libun won't work. But theoretically speaking,
putting it in the kiln is
of
libun.
course, yeah. Like your self-clean ovens are meaning
some
correct.
plates break, some plates don't.
Right. We're just worried that you won't put it in for long enough, and that's why we said don't do libun even on pottery.
And how long is long enough? Because you have to let it go.
Till like it reaches the heat. Till it reaches the heat of what
That it got it.
what it was made. Right. Fine.
Maybe that's the boss.
Like 1,000 degrees Celsius or whatever the heat is.
Oh, it has to reach the heat that it was
It has to be the reason with pottery. Correct. Fine. Okay. What about if you bought a kli from a non-Jew? So you need a tovelit and you need to do hagala. So which one should you do first? So we saw that it's best to do hagala first, and then do tovelit. Why? Because you don't want to. We saw the opinion. You want it. It's like tovel v'sheretz be'ado that you're putting in the mikveh, and it still needs to be kosher because it has the things that are inside, and it's mashma from the Shulchan Aruch. The way the Shulchan Aruch paskin is that it's fine, meaning that it's enough to just put it in. Right? It says siv beid lakach mem kelim shnishtamesh ben bechamin ben shem shematechado shel etz or even. Right? What about wood? What about stone? Can you kasher that?
Yeah.
Well, do you have the kosher stones? Stone's not.
Why is it not below? Of course it's below.
Kasher countertop.
Count that. Lakach, let's read this again. Right, for the Bechina, besides for the notes, you should read every single seif with the Rabbah, with the Shulchan Aruch and Rabbah. Right, because there are going to be questions from there. So it sounds like this. לקח מהם כלים שנשבעים מהם בחמים, בין שם של מתכת, או של עץ, או של אבן, מגילן, ואחר כך מטבילן, which means all those things are bulea, and all those things you can kasher. Right? אם הם של מתכת והם מותרים, ואם הטבילן ואחר כך הגילן מותרים. If you were tovel them, and then you did hagal, it's going to be mutter. ויש אומרים שצריך לחזור ולהטבילן. But it seems that the stam of the Shulchan Aruch is what? That lechatchila, obviously you should do hagala and then tvila. But if you do it the other way, it's going to be mutter. So comes the Shach and he says that lechatchila, what you should do is you should tovel again, meaning without a bracha, but do it again without a bracha. Excellent.
I thought wood was a problem because there might be cracks in the wood.
No, they inside
For hagala, no. For Liban, it's a problem because
Yeah.
Why
do they got that for wood?
on Pesach. 1 second. On Pesach, we're very machmir on wood because of the cracks that are inside, and it's mashu. That's on Pesach. On Pesach, you should not use any of your wooden bowls and your wooden plates. But when it comes to like basar and chalav and like that, where we're going to be more makel, so therefore you can.
We could do hagala on wood?
Yeah.
Theoretically, right, something that's straight, you can eat cold on it, right? Because there's no time that comes out. So if you buy something that's straight, you still have to do hagala before you can eat it. You still have to do hagala, right?
Yeah. What do you mean?
No, you don't.
No, you don't have to do hagala. You still have to
You still have to do tefillah,
without
correct.
doing hagala. So there can be a case where you don't have to do hagala.
There can be a case where you don't have to do hagala if you're using it
So
for
you can
something
say
cold.
theoretically
You
that
still have to use it for
next time
tefillah.
that you shouldn't have to redo hagala.
based on that, you should not have to redo Hagala because it's not like Tovah L'Sheretz B'Dah. But we saw that heter. You understand what he's asking? That's a very good question. He's asking, let's say I buy a pot. Let's say I buy a plate from a guy, and that plate I know is used clearly shown 99% of the time, so I have to do Hagala on that plate, right? But now I bought it, and I also want to eat, let's say, a sandwich off of it, right? So something that's cold. So am I allowed to put something that's cold on it?
Yes.
Temporarily, one time,
Can you eat it
yes.
with your hands?
What?
Can you eat it with your hands?
You could eat
What
it.
is, no, if
But-
it's a stew, they're going to tell you that.
No. What? No, we're not talking about tefillah. We're talking about just for like kashrus. Kashrus reason, since it's cold, so therefore I don't need I could put it on. Now, what about tefillah?
You can't use it once.
I can't use it once, right? I need a tovah. So he's saying, why should I need to do hagala and then do tefillah? Just do tefillah once because I can use it for the cold. So the answer to that is that you're only allowed to use it on a temporary basis for cold. And since you're only allowed to use it on a temporary basis for cold, so therefore we're going to say,
But still, to enable using that.
But you're only
one-time
enabling it-
temporarily, You still have to do the tefillah first, right?
Correct.
So you're gonna say the tefillah is only a one-time tefillah. There's no such thing. You did tefillah, and then
for that one time. So you're
and
saying in
it's-
that case, maybe the shach would agree that you wouldn't have to do it again. Maybe. Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you about Derek Hara. Does the Shulchan Aruch also holds cold you can use Derek Hara in that sif? Or is it only the Ramah?
Who holds?
No,
The
it's
Ramah
also
says you can
Shulchan.
use cold Derek Hara. Do
Correct.
the Sfarim hold the same way?
Yes.
From what I understand, yeah. Yes. Meaning from
Because I'm not sure, is the Ramah commenting or drawing
Okay,
distinction?
right. The Ramah is adding to what he said. So let's read this. This Sif Hey. Let's read Sif Hey. It says like this: Imagir Kli. What?
When you kosher wood, do you have to also do tefillah? Do you have to agala and tefillah on wood?
Do you need to do tefillah on wood?
Wood.
Do you?
No.
Sure. What?
I don't think so.
Right. Exactly. So
Right,
right
you
this
just-
time metal. What? Yeah. Okay. Hey. Imagir Kli. Atzrich libon. If you did hagala on a kli, that needs libon. So for example, I have a prong. It's called. What's that thing called?
Tongue.
A tongue?
Tongue,
Not a
tongue,
tongue.
tongue.
The thing that you.
Prongs.
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 The four
Prongs,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. The
Prongs.
prong things. They're tongs and they're prongs. Right? Prongs is the two when it has the two things.
Prawns.
Come on, guys.
Tongues are
You,
like
you guys
this.
ever walked into the kitchen? Ever there before? Right? So you have the prongs.
What's that?
for the barbecue anyway.
Right, exactly.
The first barbecue needs to go in the kitchen.
So imagir kriyat tzirimun. So you need to do libun on that thing because it came in contact with fire. But what did you do with it? You did hagal. Are you allowed to use it?
If it's been
For-
24
For not
hours,
something that's on the fire. Something that's
Yeah.
on a kli rishon. What's the din?
Yes.
Aser. Aser nishtamesh bo b'chamin, afilu shelo al yidei. You're not allowed to use it for something that's even shelo al yidei. Why? So it explains the Taz that we're worried that since it needed libun and you didn't do libun, all you did was agala. So that flavor, that treifa flavor that was inside, didn't fully leave. So now when it's coming into a high heat, even though it's not coming in contact with a yad, with a libun type of heat, but it's coming in contact with a yad sulezibot type of heat, what's going to be the din? The din is that you're going to have to
Come out.
you're gonna have to the flavor might come out the second time. There are cushions outside there if you want. You guys good?
Even if
To buy a knife, we see.
What?
To buy a knife from a non-Jew, which could do and then we could do Hagala and.
So the knife was very complicated. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
even after
Fine.
20, even the tongue was even after 24 hours. 24
What?
hours doesn't make any difference. That tongue, the one you use, even after 24 hours, that stuff's in Libyan. I can't just use agala.
24
Correct.
hours, no
The
sense.
Yeah.
24 hours doesn't make any difference.
No.
It's not pagam.
Right. We saw one sheet of that maybe, but right. Correct. You still need to leave it.
That's what I'm talking about.
So that was Sifei. Says the Ramah on that thing. He says about mutar lishtamesh bo tzonen. You're allowed to use it for something cold. Afilu lechatchila al yedei adacha v'shivshuf. Meaning, if I have a kli that needs to do agala, so if I clean it well, I can use that thing for cold. V'kol shken b'kli shetzarich agala v'dafka b'derech harai. And only b'derech harai k'gon shu bebet ovet kochavim. And the example that he gives, for example, you're in the house of the non-Jew, but not in your house. בדיעבד, אבל אם רוצה להשתמש בו בקבע, יש מחמירים ואומרים, דאפילו להשתמש בו צונן, צריך עגלה. Right, which is kind of what you're saying. That some of the poskim were saying, says the Ramah, that if you're using it b'derech harai in your house, some say that you're not allowed to use it for cold. Rather, you need to do hagala or libun. גזירה שם להשתמש בו בחמין, והכי נוהגין, and that's what the minig is. ואפילו כלים שתשמישן בצונן, אם יש לחוש שחיממו ביין בכלי כסף, basically he says even though kalim that you usually use for something that is cold, if you have a chashash that they used it for something that's hot, so the din is that you're going to have to do hagal or libun based on that heat level.
So if you have a new dish, well, new for you,
Yeah.
and you put it in this, and you're doing hagalah, but it's in a fleshig pot, if we're gonna say you can't do a fleshik pot and a milchik pot within 24 hours and everything, does that mean that could make the pot fleshik even if you didn't like have any actual food in it? Is that enough to?
I understand. You have
You want to do hagalah.
okay.
But the
so wait
pot
24 hours.
pot that you're putting inside the water, the pot that's holding the water is
Should also be
fleshik.
24 hours later.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's not, that can actually make the new
Not
dish.
that it can't make.
Can you make the new dish, which you haven't done
Maybe.
anything? It's a goy. It's
If they're both, what do you mean? Why are you doing hagalah on a new dish?
You got a new for you, your new acquisition.
Second-hand.
Okay.
Your second-hand dish.
Yeah.
You got it. You got it within
So then we'll say
24
stam
hours
kelim.
of your.
We're
of
gonna
your-
say stam kelim in a ben yoman, and you can still kasher it in that thing. We're gonna assume
and so no matter what, you can't make it so it's
correct.
turns fleshik because
Correct.
you did
Unless,
it in a
but
fleshik
if you know that they are treif, if you know that one is milchik and one is slishik and they're both ben yoman, so then
No,
you can't
but
do
the
hagalah.
it's a goy. It's a
He's saying
goy.
if the
Right.
pot that you're
It's
using
fire.
is filled with water,
The Hagala pot has
and
to
it's
be- Hagala
ben-
pot.
and it's ben yomo. Within 24 hours, you used it. You cooked the chicken soup,
Yeah.
poured out the chicken soup, and right away boiled up water.
To do hagala.
fill
Can
the
that
pot.
make? Can that
Is
make
it
the
gonna make
pot?
the new pot
The
fleshik?
new.
It's not gonna make
the
new
second
pots.
pot fleshik.
No, that's not bernat.
Not
Right,
bernat.
Sham. You guys remember that?
Not
Yes.
bernat.
Oh.
Okay, great. It's more than not bernat.
Well, the
But yeah.
hagalah can take out because if you're taking out anything that might be trace that's in the pot from the goy, that can affect the other pot. So how can that affect the pot that's already?
That's only if it's ben yoman. Yeah. Fine. So let's continue. The Ramah says, right. That's what we said. The lechatchili should do agala on the cups that you bought from or he says on tables v'chulei. But the Shachar says that on tables all you need to do is iroy and not hagala, but on the cups itself you need. What about frying pans? Right. So frying pans, if you remember, this was the sif before. So here's where it got a little bit complicated. It says the Shulchan Aruch and sif dalad machva, which is a frying pan. Shemitagnim ba, that you fry on top of it. Afal pi shelinyan chametz bepesach daila be'agala linyan shar yisurim tzricha libun, which means what? That that by Pesach it's enough to do hagala on the frying pan, but when it comes to kashering, what do you need to do? You need to do libun. However, we saw that the Ramah in Hilchos Pesach said that it's not enough to do hagala on it. Rather, l'chatchila you should do libun. But b'diavad it's enough to do what? B'diavad it's enough to do hagala. So we said, why would you need to do hagala on Pesach? Why would it be enough to do hagala on Pesach? So we saw as opposed to chametz. So those were the two answers. First answer we said is that maybe chametz is considered hetei rabala, which means what? That it's something that's inherently mutter, and only on Pesach is when it becomes aser. So therefore, it's like something that's milk, and milk that you're making into fleshik. What's the din?
Hagala.
So then that just to switch it will be enough to do hagala. You don't need a higher heat level. And the second answer that we saw is that goyim, when they're making their foods, so they use it without any liquids. So since they're using without any liquids, so therefore you're going to have to do liban on the pots. But Jews usually cook with oil, right? Pokchazi. That we always use. We like to use oil and everything. And since we're using oil, so what's the din? The din is that it's going to be that if there's enough liquid, so therefore it's enough to do hagala. So lalach, how do we paskin? Since we saw that the Piskei Shua said, he said that from milk to meat, if you have a frying pan, that you want to make it from milk to fleshik, what do you need to do? Hagala. And chametz on Pesach. What about chametz on Pesach? That we saw machlokas. According to the Shulchan Aruch, it's enough to do hagala. According to the Ramah, what do you need to do? Libun kal or hagala. But if it's something that became treif, so then what do you need to do? Then it depends if there was liquid in it or not. So what's the amount of liquid? So we saw two shitas: either that it's sizzling inside, or that it's tufach al menat le'atfiach. Tufach al menat le'atfiach, which means that I touch it, it's wet, and then when I touch another towel, the towel becomes wet. So that's tufach al menat le'atfiach. That's enough to make it into kli rishon, and the din is going to be that it's enough to do hagala on it, and you don't need anything else. So those were the different shitas.
You
What?
mentioned milk to fleshik. You never mentioned fleshik to milk. You can.
Same thing.
Same
Milk,
thing.
yeah, milk,
Makes no
same
difference.
thing.
Okay, fantastic.
Not
Thank you.
specific.
You don't need to wait 6 hours. Yeah.
Not specific
3
to
hours,
frying
depending
pan,
where
but
you
can
are.
you remind me, what's the din when you used the same thing for meat and milk by mistake? So is that considered a terabella, a surabella?
Not to surabah. If you use it within 24 hours. Use it within
if you
24
did-
hours?
Not within 24 hours. Like
If
you
you
use, meaning you used it for milk, then like.
So the food inside is kosher. The food is kosher.
Right,
but
that
you
I
still
know,
need to
that I
kasher
know,
the pot.
but the kasher how? Let's say it's a
Oh, so
frying
that
pan.
would be surabah also.
It's surabella.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So for example, with a frying pan, you basically can't.
So the question is, how much oil did you use
Right,
or not?
okay.
Portion of the oil.
Right? That would
can,
be
but-
that's what it would
Right.
come down to. Now,
Yeah,
so
you
we
can.
saw.
And
Then we
that's
spoke about
Teflon.
Teflon, right? Remember we spoke about
There
Teflon.
is
What is
a little
Teflon?
So Teflon is like a plastic coating. So is it boleh or not? So here we saw that Rav Elyashiv says that you can't kasher Teflon, and Ramosha says that you could do Hagala on Teflon, but you shouldn't do Libon. Why shouldn't you do Libon? Because we're scared that you're going to ruin the pan, and since you're going to ruin the pan, which is what, right? So then it's going to go back to the pottery case that if we're worried that you're going to destroy the frying pan, that's going to be usher. So therefore, he said that you should not do Libon, but you could do Hagala. So Lamaisa, if you trafe up your frying pan, and there was enough oil inside that it's sizzling or that it's it's enough to do Hagala. But if it was completely dry, like you took, let's say, a piece of pizza, right? So one of the ways, another fun fact, okay? Another way to make, you have a day-old pizza. You stick it in the microwave, killed it. Soggy, right? People want crunchy pizza, right? They want it to be good. So how do you make it? What's the way to keep it crunchy? You take a frying pan, turn on the fire, don't add any oil, nothing, keep it empty. Put the pizza directly onto the frying pan, and then you can have a crunchy, delicious.
You should cover it.
Right, and also you should cover it if you want the cheese to melt and to get hot. You cover it on top. Then the bottom stays crunchy. You're like this. You like this. This is good.
It's on video.
So the bottom becomes crunchy, and then the top stays. It gets really hot. So let's say you did that with a fleshik pan. Right, so you by accident you took a fleshik pan and you put the pizza on it, and it was Teflon or whatever it was. What's it then? You would have to do libun, but if it was Teflon, you're shot. Right? Go buy another one. Go to Hoshana and take another one. That would be possible.
What about a spray? Like the Pam or whatever? Like is that
yeah.
considered?
So
it does sort of
enough.
bubble a little bit. I mean,
It might not make the
Maybe.
pizza good enough. So.
Maybe.
As long as you put your hand and put it on
When
the
you
piece
do
of
a-
paper, you have the same. That's
It
it.
does
What?
sizzle.
You put your hand on the pan, and then you take your fingers and put it on the paper.
And it was wet
it's
enough,
stained,
so
that's
then,
enough. So the pan
according to the
is-
Kappa Chaim, according to
What
Spartan.
is it?
You got
When you
to
do
let
a
it
go
go.
on a pan or a pot, you have to take off the handle.
No, you put the whole thing in, because the way it comes out is the way it comes. The way it goes in is the way it comes out.
So the handle, doesn't.
Correct. If you use the frying pan or the pot without the handles, and then later on you added the handles,
Then
so
yes.
what are you going to do? Then you have to take it out, because then it's like the rust that's on the outside. No, it would act as a chatzitza. Good. Okay, so that was by the frying pans. Now let's talk about knives. Ready? So knives. This was a little confusing, and we left a little bit of a tzarkin, and we're still going to leave off with a little bit of a tzarkin. But basically, what the Gemara says was like this: we have to differentiate between, and I made a chart that I'm going to email you guys, that you'll see that will make things a little bit clearer, I hope, but it's still a little complicated. Like this: the Gemara says that if you buy a knife from a non-Jew, right? So here the Gemara assumes that you're using the knife. The guy used the knife on the fire, so we use libun. So let's say now you're using a knife and it's a smooth knife and you want to use it for cold food. So what does the Gemara say? A smooth knife that you want to use for cold food. You want to cut your salami with it, or you want to cut something that's cold with it. What do you need to do? So the Gemara says a few requirements. One, you have to stab it into the ground 10 times. The same ground,
No.
different grounds. Why? Because we're worried. We're worried, right? We're worried that there is shamnunit, that there's a little bit of fat left on the knife. So when you're stabbing it 10 times, what's the din? The din is that that thing is gonna come out. The other thing that you need to do is also the knife needs to be smooth. It can't be rigid, because if it's rigid, we're worried that there's gonna be little bits of tray food that's stuck inside. And then you can use that knife only for cold food and not for hot food. And that's how the Mechaber paskins in Sev Zayin says Sakin Yashan Ben Gadol Ben Katan Anikach Movet Kochavim Im Ba Lishtamish Betzonen. If you want to use it for cold, Im En Bagumot, and it's smooth, meaning it doesn't have ridges. Noatza Ashara Pamim Bakarka. You do it 10 times in the ground. Kasha. וצריך שכל נקצה וניצה תהיה בקרקע קשה. It needs to be in hard floor. לפיכך לא ינוץ במקום שנץ ניצה אחרת. Don't stab it twice in the same time. ואפילו לחתוך פה דבר חריף כמו צנון סגי בכי. Even to cut something that's sharp, it's going to be enough. It's going to be fine. The Pesach Tshuva argues on this. Why does he argue on this?
Only for cold, though.
What? Only for cold, but even for an onion. So here we asked if it was belea, if the inside has blios, so then when it comes to the onion is something that's sharp that's going to take the blios out. So why is the Shulchan Aruch saying that it's mutter? So here in Achrami, the Pesach Tshuva argues on this, and he says that at least for Ashkenazim, Sfardim have a different din in when it comes to Davar Charef or when it comes to Eno Ben Yomo. So right, we saw if you remember from last time that Sfardim said that if the knife is Eno Ben Yomo, you could be Meko. Right? So maybe Stam Kelim Eno Ben Yomo, and therefore that's why the Shulchan Aruch is Machmir. Is made by something that's sharp. But here the Pesach Tshuva says that, according to the Ramah, that even something that's Eno Ben Yoma and it's sharp, it takes out the flavor. So what's the din? The din is that it's going to be us. You can only use it for cold food. Now, What happens if it has rigid, if it has serrations, or you want to use the smooth knife for what? For something that's hot. So here comes the Mechaber and he says, V'im yesh ba gumot. It has what? Serration? It's serrated.
Yeah.
What's the verb?
There's no
Okay, fine. There's no verb. Maybe it's gumot. She'rotzeh lachtoch b'chamin, and you want to, or right? Or she'rotzeh lachtoch b'chamin, or you want to cut something hot in it. Or l'shchot ba milavna. You do libon, right? So libon here we understand why you use it for something hot. We use it al di'aish. It's not to do libon. What's the other option? Or mashchiza b'mashchezet shenefachim hetev al pnei kola. Or what did you do? You shave it down and you grind. And here, this is what we didn't.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What?
What does that mean?
You ever seen those things that turn really quickly, the cutting wheels that sharpen the thing?
Yeah.
So mashchiza is what? Right. So you're sharpening it. You're
Can't you just do with a stone? Use a sharp
yeah,
stone?
the same thing. That you're mashchiza, you're taking off. Right. So here we asked. This was like the sarchin that if it was absorbed, if it absorbs flavor, what's the din? How is it going to come out? So here in Achanami, the Ramah argues, and he says v'yeshomrim dashchaza lo me'ani. Right, ashchaza doesn't help. What does it help for? Rak achtoch batzulen. It only is going to help to do what?
Cold.
To do cold. Because again, what's it doing? All it's doing is taking off the fat that's on the outside, and now you're allowed to cut something cold on it. Aval lo linyan chamim, but not something that is hot. However, what could you do? He says v'achi naog lechatchila v'im lo yachol elaven hasakin. So this is what you were asking before. Let's say you have a knife that's like a butcher's knife, and the handle is wood. So how do you do liban on the whole thing? So first of all, if you remember, we saw that according to the Ramah, it's enough to do liban just on the half that came in contact with which is probably not the handle, which is what. But besides that, he says what you should do is you should do liban on the knife part, and then you put the rest in the hagala. And if you do that, it's going to be you're allowed to use that smooth knife even for something that's hot. Right? So if you do liban and then you do hagala, it's enough to use that knife for something that's hot. It says miu im livno v'lo igilo. If you did liban, but you didn't do hagala, afilu yesh ba gumot, even if it has gumot. Oh, im higilo, you did hagala, v'lo livno, and you didn't do liban, ve'en bo gumot, and it doesn't have serrations, v'chatach bo ma'achal cham, and you cut with it hot food, lo ne'esar, afilu asakin ben yemo. It doesn't become aser. So what does he say? Let's say I have a knife that's not serrated, and I do hagala on it, and then I cut something that's hot. What's the din with that food?
Okay.
Says the Ramah, the food is fine. Now, what is the Shulchan Aruch saying in that such a case? This case, the Shulchan Aruch is going to be machmir, and he's going to say that the food is going to become aser. Why is he saying that it's going to become aser? Because again, the Shulchan Aruch says that for a knife that you want to use for hot food, if it's smooth, what's the din? You need to do or libun or hashchaza. But here the Ramah is saying that you don't need to do hashchaza. Hashchaza only works. Hashchaza doesn't work. But if you do hagala, it's going to be enough. What?
That's only if it's serrated.
Even if it's not serrated. Here, if it's smooth, even if it's not
Shulchan Aruch
smooth.
says even if it's not serrated, you have to do
If you're using it for hot food, yes. If you're using it for hot food, it needs to be thin. Yes.
Some of the Ramash sounds like it's b'diavad. The Chachila, this doesn't work.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it still says L'chachila, you
In Achanam.
do something
In
different.
Achanam,
If
yes.
you happen to have done it,
If you haven't done it, the food is going to be mutter.
Why, if we say our whole issue is that we're afraid he used it ala ish,
Right.
then how could Hagala ever work?
Excellent question. Sorry, Chian. I don't know.
Even if it's
Unless what we say is that once we assume Stam Kelim Eina Ben Yoman, and then after 24 hours, so then Chazal could be more like.
So then we can say everything that needs
In Achanami, and that's why it's Tzarchin. That's how we left this whole sif. This whole sif is very much Tzarchin, and I looked and looked at it.
even if it's ben yoma.
What?
It's fine even if it's ben yoma.
You did Hagala.
It says even within 24 hours.
Correct. Ve'en bo gumot v'chatach b'machal, afilu asakin ben yomo. Right. Why?
That goes even if it's within 24 hours.
Yeah, because you did Hagala, and it's talking about a
What
proper
is that?
Hagala that you had 60
About
against
the
that thing.
shishim?
Yeah, a proper Hagala. That's what it means. For sure, what it means. Because then it's
But
not
where does he
Hagala.
ever say that it needs to have shishim to do proper?
And Hilchos Pesach.
He does say
Yeah.
that.
Oh, right. So we're gonna get to that in a minute, but that was
Wait a minute,
Right.
how come you need 24 hours, you say?
unless you have shishim against the knife. If you have shishim against the knife, so then it's still different.
Why over here are we willing to say that you can use it for cold, because, and we're not choshesh that maybe you'll come to use it for hot, and just 2 minutes ago we said for the pot that we are choshesh that you're going to come to use it for hot, therefore we don't allow you to use it for cold.
That's an excellent question. I don't have an answer. Why according to the Shulchan Aruch that maybe? Oh, so the Shach says only b'derech harei. That's the answer, right? He has the Shulchan Aruch over here says that you're allowed to. I think the Ramah says it. Yeah. Look at that. It's the Ramah. It's not the Shach. read inside. His question was, why does it help to kasher this knife to like rub off the fat on it, stab it 10 times in the graft, and then use it for something cold? If a second ago, what did we say? That to use it for something cold is only derech hayr. So the Rama says, "V'lishtamesh bo b'kviyut lo gara mishal kli shenoagim lagid bo afilu tzoneh." Right? Excellent. Baruch Kivanti. You're mekaven to the Rama. Beautiful. So fine. So that was those were the knives. So and that was the tzarich in that we ended off with, which was, how do we understand this? If you used it on a high heat, on a high level, so then why does it help to do hagala once or twice or whatever? So that was tzarich in, and then we saw a Ramosha where it seemed from the Ramosha, and I showed it to a few other people, and they said that it seems like this, but it can't be. Yeah. Right, so that's why we're not going to show on this Ramosha, but basically it seems from the language of the Ramosha that if you kasher, if a kli that needs libun, and you wait 24 hours, it's enough to do hagala on it. That's what it was mashma from the lashon of the Ramosha, but lamaisa, that is definitely not the din, because then you can chuck out everything that we just did, right? And all and meaning it's not midurik like that at all from any of the sifim over here. From any of the sifim. So therefore, lamaisa, you should not pass on like that. And you can look at the language inside. If you have the Ma'ar Mekomas, look at the language inside. It could be when he says that if you wait 24 hours and then you do hagala, he was going on what he said before, not on like the frying pans that he was talking about. But fine.
Didn't we also say that hashchaza with libun, no, with hagala is lechatchila good?
Correct.
Even for hot.
That's what he says, right? He says correct. He says ואם השחיזו במשחזת היטב, בכל מקום, everywhere, והגילו אחר כך, מעני אפילו לכתחילה כמו ליבון. It's like libun. And here also we asked again, why? If the flavor came in from a high heat level, why is it going to be enough to do ashkaza and then hagal? So we're going to have to come up and say that for some reason a knife isn't, even when it's used on the grill, maybe it doesn't reach such a high temperature. I don't know exactly what we're going to say. Like when, I don't know what I'm going to say.
Because you don't put the knife on. Because you don't
but why would that be?
Because you don't put the knife on the grill, you put the knife in the meat, and the meat's not going to be as hot as the grill.
No, but he's saying this is a case we used it straight on the fire.
Right.
But we also,
you put a knife right on the
even
grill.
when I'm saying flames come up, that's considered on the fire.
But Arab, we also said before in Basar B'Chalav that the whole onion thing and whether or not you do like it's kedei kippah and everything else. So
that's on the onion. How much flavor goes?
No, but it's also on the knife itself because it said like if you cut it on the same knife like 3 times, cut a lemon or 3.
Right.
Because it only has the amount.
Right. It only has the amount. And whatever. But that flavor that would come out, it was not going to come out by.
But we don't going to spread. It's only going to be in that one little place. I mean, that's what gets really, really hot. But you're saying if we only use it for the one little part. They said the heat can only go in that one part.
Correct. But if you have again, we saw before that if something needs to do libun on it, but you do hagal on it. So what's the din? The din is that you can't use it for something even on a kli rishon because we're worried that the flavor is not fully going to come out. Fine. Do you need to make a bracha on hagala?
No.
Why not?
Because
it's
three reasons.
Right? Number one, we said because you can buy new kelim. You don't have to do hagala. Number 2 is because it's a lav, right? What are you doing hagala on? You're doing hagala on because the food is treif. So you don't make a bracha that I didn't eat treif. And number 3 is that you can't see the blios. That was the last thing that was said. Okay. That was it. That was Hagalas Kelim. So now we're going to move on to Pasaka. V'samachta. No, I brought a guitar. Hey,
Battery check. Hold on a second. We're who has a phone that we can stream with? Because I'm out of battery. Anybody? No, but you need 24 hours to go live.
What do I 24 hours to go live?
If you have to set if you haven't set it in advance. How about yours, Donnie? Yours? What's your battery?
I also don't have.
Who has the phone that has battery that we can stream? Because I'm out of battery.
That's done live streaming.
Thank you.
Or
Facebook.
The difference between a knife and like a plate or a pot or anything else is always go to Caleb.
Maybe he
All right.
has a portable charger.
So
Out of what?
If
You have a portable charger?
On it, you have to charge it. But a knife.
No, but it has to be close enough here also.
What?
Yeah, sorry.
It has to be close
Nothing
over
ever
here.
sits on the knife. It's always the knife cuts through it.
Oh yeah, okay. All right.
24 hours.
Yeah, it's you have to wait 24
No, 24 hours.
What has to be 24 hours?
For YouTube to
to
port it.
enable you for your live streaming.
All right, guys, on the live stream, however long the battery lasts, that's how long the shear's gonna last, and then
Like a plate.
I'll be typed.
This one sits on it. So it sits.
That's how long the shear's gonna last, and then
Like a plate.
I'll be typed.
This one sits on it. So it sits.
Grab that real quicker.
Yeah, you have 29% battery. You used like 40 so far.
It goes back, and then it goes straight up. And then you need to wait and straight up.
That's to reach the outlet. That's to reach the outlet. You have a portable charger.
All right, put that back.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean?
Yeah, there's a red on.
Somebody else lined up to be on the account. Right?
Oh, so Gmail?
No.
Right.
To do it on that account.
Portable?
It doesn't have to be on your phone. You can
Oh, we gotta get that thing back now.
Do you have to sign up? Do you have to sign up on the Gmail account to do that? Like on the YouTube account?
You have to have
Then how are we gonna have a fan?
Once you have a YouTube account, it's automatic.
What?
Is there another outlet?
What?
Is there another outlet? Is there more than one outlet?
No, I think we need a splitter. Let me see. I don't if there is.
You don't have a plug in? Once you have a YouTube account, it's
Not
automatic.
that hot.
No, then take a look at it. He's got, if there's a computer, you can plug in anything else.
Yeah, let me have the.
No, I just tried right now. And it's 24 hours.
What do you even do, like?
We're adding some power. Hook you guys up.
Allow access?
Do live stream.
Why do you need?
YouTube. The first time you try to live stream, they enable you, and it takes 24 hours.
Yeah, they're like 5, 6 times Russian.
Yeah.
You don't have an account to do that.
Three.
You have a YouTube account.
Right now.
It's all I'm saying, keep it off, you know, you can-
Multitasking. Well, if you can attach that to the computer, then you can actually.
All right, all the questions is why you have to do this.
If you attach it to the computer, then you can like charge the phone.
And then use it for something cold.
Was it up? Have a, like a laptop or something?
Watch your water. Watch your water.
Yeah, but turn up and unplug the fan though.
Right there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
You can take this one.
We're not gonna blow the fuses here, are we?
Let's see if it works. Is there anyone listening to this?
Yeah, 3 people.
You're on it.
Hello?
Yeah. But this isn't this gonna be saved? Where's
Hopefully.
On YouTube.
All right.
We're back in business.
We're back in business. Okay.
What does that look like? Is that right?
Clear Up Tendler has a thing about kosher
Still all
dishwasher
this
for face
thing
off.
happening.
Koshering a you could kosher a dishwasher,
Yeah.
but koshering stuff in a dishwasher?
Oh, I thought
You can
kosher-
kosher
I thought
a
the question was
dishwasher,
koshering a
yes,
dishwasher.
but you can.
But it could be a Rui though. You could do a Rui though.
Is that working?
Yeah, but I don't know if you're gonna get it all over maybe.
Well, you turn, or you turn up that. You can turn it
You're
right side
charging?
up.
That's good, that's good.
Oh, you got it? Wow.
Is that still charging until it's light on up here?
Not a color. Liquid. Yeah.
Yeah. Lights on, right?
Is it quarter D?
All right. No, I'm saying, hello, what I was saying is that.
So it depends how what was the level it went in, and if you do liquid
$7
top. Right, if it's something that was a Tera Bala, then you can use a Mac.
But isn't that why? Isn't the reason why we said that you can your grades can be traced because any food that's on the
There's not
bottom
enough coffee to
I'll get you a
is
cup.
going to leave one itself automatically.
No, I think a beer is
Like, wow, it's like leave one in real time.
Yeah, beer is
right?
better.
He's my nephew. It's a vinyl. Very amazing guy. It's amazing. You're finally in it.
Yeah, sure.
I've been in it.
You've been in it
I've
long
been
time?
cameos.
Okay.
Hot. Okay. Where's the bread?
Hayata b'chaltanu mikaylamim Haymirati sabanu Yamanana b'karashana Hayata isanu Mirati sabanu Yamanana b'karashana B'kirashanu b'mizvosecha B'mizvosecha B'kirashanu Magenu That's right. Okay. Pasakum, you ready? Siman? Kuf? Yud? Bet. Amazing. Okay. So this is very relevant and very exciting, as always. Okay, so like this. Pasakum. What's the reason why Chazal said that you're not allowed to eat bread that was baked by a non-Jew, even though all the ingredients are kosher? What's the reason? Because of chatas, and the Gemara says chatas mishum davar acher. Davar acher means what? Because of a desire. That was the reason of why Pas Akum is going to be Asur, and the Gzera of Pas Akum was only said by the 5 grains. And that's what the Mechaber says in the beginning. Asu chachamim lechol pat shel hamamim v'bdei kochavim mishum chatnut ve'afilu b'makom dileka mishum chatnut asu. Says Rama, even when there's no chatnus. So for example, what would that be?
No children.
No children, right? If it'll be like or whatever it is, it's going to be Asur. Right? Aval, pat shel kitniot, the pat of kitniot, which are beans, v'shel orez, v'duchan, eno b'chal pat stam she'asru. V'gam eno asur mishum b'shulu avet kochavim, v'meno ola shcham lechim. Fine. So basically, what's the din? The din is that their bread is going to be asur, but only bread. Basically, bread is going to be asur.
5 grains.
Now, right, if it's from the 5 grains. What about the problem? Then we said, but there are certain times where it's going to be mutter. Right? Meaning Chazal saw that it's too hard for this Gzera. The Gzera wasn't like widely accepted, and since it wasn't widely accepted, so therefore and because you need bread, so therefore there were times that they were mekel, and that's going to be by pas palter. Now when they were mekel by pas palter, how could they be mekel? What about their pots and the pans, which are treif? So we say stam kalim in a ben yoman, and therefore if they haven't used, we assume that they haven't used the kalim in 24 hours, and therefore the din is that it's going to be mutter. What about bread of someone who's not religious? So here we saw a machlokas, but the way the Pischei Tshuva and Ramoshe Paskin was that bread of someone who's not religious is going to become, it's going to be mutter. What would be the reason to make it aser if there's no chatnos? Because the Gemara says chatnos mishum davar acher. Davar acher means because of a desire. So if the person isn't religious, and sometimes he's atheist or anti-religious, so then it might come to lead to that thing. But still, it comes out that the din is that it's not going to be. The way the Ramosh Paskin is that the bread that was baked by someone who was not religious is going to be mutter. Now, Siv base. What? And Rav Kook.
That was Bishop.
No, that was by
No, but you can still marry the daughters. Because you can still marry the daughters.
Correct.
Yeah.
Fine. Seif base. What does Seif base say? It says Yesh mekomot shemakilim b'davar v'lokchim pat minachtum. There are some places that take bread from a nachtum ovet kochavim b'makom she'en sham nachtum Yisrael mipnei shehu shat atchak. Which means that if there aren't people who could, if there aren't people that could, what? Right. If there's not Jewish bakers, meaning if there are only non-Jewish bakers in town, so the din is that you're allowed to take it from them because it's shat atchak. Meaning shat atchak is going to allow you to buy bread from a non-Jewish baker. Palter. So over to Palter. V'yesh omrim, says the Rama, de'afilu b'makom shepat Yisrael matzui shari. That even if there's Jewish bread around, what's the din? Still, you're allowed to buy from this person.
That's only Ashkenazi. Sephardi would say no.
Yeah, that's
correct. That was the Rama. He says the Shulchan Aruch about pat shel bali batim. What's pas of bali bais? Meaning not a baker, but your next door neighbor who's giving it to you as a present. And sham. It says no one is going to be matter because the Isser Gzeir is because of Chatas. If you're going to eat the pas balabatim, it's going to become matter. However, if you go to Sivchas, he says Yesh mishomer d'makom she'en palter matzui klal mutar afilu shel balabatim. Right? Even though he says en mishumatir, a few minutes later he says that if you have nothing to eat, 0 t, it's going to be matter. So again, you have pas akum, which means bread that was made by a non-Jew. Say Chazal, it's going to be aser. However, that gezerah was too hard because so comes the Shulchan Aruch, and it says pas palter. If it's a bakery bread, it's going to be mutter. When is it going to be mutter? Only if there's no Jewish baker in town. Or if you look at Seif Hey, yesh omrim shemish yesh be'ado pat o shel parter Yisrael ve'yesh parter ovet kochavim oseh pat yafe mimeno. He makes the better bread. O mimin acher, or he's making a different type. You can buy from the non-Jewish baker. So again, pas palter is going to be mutter according to the Shulchan Aruch only in one of two cases. There's no Jewish bakery, or even if there is a Jewish bakery, but he's making it better than the Jewish baker. That's the Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah says that you can always buy from the palter. Comes the Shach, and this is how we pass them the Maisa, that even for Ashkenazim it's better to be machmir like the Shulchan Aruch. Now, pas balabatim is always going to be asar. And why is it always going to be asr? Because that's for sure going to lead to chatos. However, the Shulchan Aruch says that b'shas t'chak mamish, when you have nothing to eat, yesh mishomer. He brings them maybe yesh mishomer, and maybe there's what to rely on. Yes.
In terms of the kashrut of the bread, stam kelim and ben yoman, that doesn't apply to palter, because by definition it's like a.
So
like in a restaurant we don't say that.
So stam kelim and ben yoman from when you use it for something treif, right? That's
even in a non-Jewish, like let's say in a non-Jewish restaurant.
So a restaurant might be different because they're always constantly making food, right? But in someone's house or in a bakery where they're not making always tray for food, they might do a run once a day or whatever. So then it's gonna again, right? The reason why we didn't come out with like a clear psak when it came to pas palter, like you're going to France, so what's gonna be the din, right? So the reason why we didn't come out saying it's 100% mutter because it depends on the situation. Someone told me he went to France recently, and you would thought he was like, okay, I can totally get the bakery. He ran into the Chabad beforehand just to double check. And he's like, which bakeries like are mutter? So he says in this region, it was like a certain region, and it was whatever certain type of region. He said in this region, I went into 6 bakeries, and that's like the majority of the bakeries in the section. All of them, the way they make the bread is with something that's not. They use lard. They use lard to the thing, right? So that's why I'm not coming out and saying, oh, go to France and buy yourself bread from any bakery when you're on vacation with the family. Why? Because you have to know, if you know what the ingredients are and you know that it's asr, then it's going to be asr. However, if you are in France and there is a bakery and there is, or whatever it is, and you're in a place where there is no code, you're going to Thailand, right? And you walk into a bakery and you ask you know that the ingredients there are kosher ingredients. The thing is that it's mutter 100% lechatchila to buy bread from the store.
What about ensuring that the oven is kosher?
What?
What about ensuring that the oven is kosher?
So that's part of it. But when it comes to the oven, if we saw that there's a lot to be makel on that, what do you mean? What does that mean? What do you mean make sure that the oven's kosher?
In other words, the same. I don't know what lard is, but the same oven that they're cooking the lard-made bread. 10 minutes later, the lard-made bread comes out, and they put it in French.
So there's a lot to be samech on that. That's going to be mutter.
Yeah, we
and I in the first thing. Rav Shachter's opinion is you can cook
at the same time.
What? No, that's covered. Even if it doesn't cool down. Rav Shachter says you can put meaning he says the chatchili you should wait for it to cool down, but that was just like a thing they threw in. Mikra adin. If you cook treif in your oven, according to Rav Shachter, 10 minutes later you can cook kosher food. If it's dripped, if something comes out, then it's more complicated. So again, you'll have to see what's it in. In these bakeries, usually the bread is even not according to their motion. When it comes to bread, the kuliyam, even according to Shulchan Aruch, without Rav Shachter, bread does not have zeya. Bread is something that's a davar lach, and it's a davar yavesh. It's something that's not liquidy, and since it's not liquidy, it doesn't have any zeya, and therefore you can make tray for bread in the oven. 2 minutes later, make kosher bread, and it's going to be mutter. The problem is if you smear the bottom of the oven, instead of using like an oil or spray, if you smear that with a lard-based whatever smear on top, but the din is that it's going to become asar, right? The bread that you use afterwards is going to be asar because if some of the lard is still there, it's going to be asar. But if you know that they're using kosher ingredients, the din is that it's going to be mutter 100% lechatchila. Right. So but that's the reason why I didn't come out with a clear cut saying it's only mutter, because you have to do your research. Don't just go into a store and say, oh, okay, hey, I learned that I can buy bread wherever I go.
Right, but why does this not apply to other things? I understand the idea of like lechem yechia adam, but still, there are many foods that you could also say that the ingredients are kosher, and no one ever said go into a restaurant and get whatever.
Because you said bread is something you have to live by. You say you have to live by bread.
Okay, but if it's kosher, it's kosher. There's no
If it's kosher, it's kosher. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the problem then?
Because the Xera itself
in
didn't
getting-
wasn't applied.
No, but
What are you talking about? Bishul? What are you talking about?
He's saying, why can't you apply it to other foods? But
By Bishul?
Yeah.
There's another Xera, Bishul, where their Chazal said.
No, I'm not saying by Bishul. I'm
So what?
saying-
Give me an example.
I'm not talking
I
about
walk
the
into a
idea of
restaurant,
Bishul.
what am I ordering?
Let's say, I don't know, rice.
Bishul. Next.
No, but okay, but I'm saying in a case where you know, let's say that it's okay.
What?
But I'm saying the ingredient aspect. There is no other food.
Let me rephrase the question. Could I buy this? We spoke about the first STP session. Could I go into a Walmart and buy green beans? That the ingredients are green beans and water.
no.
I'm
Wait.
not asking the guys who gave the report, right? No, you guys. What? Not frozen, off the shelf. Canned green beans. Look at the ingredients. It says water and green beans.
No.
Are green beans kosher?
No.
You're not in Israel. You don't have Trumas and Meisters. Is the water kosher?
No.
Yes. What's is it mutter or not?
No.
So according to those, you should not do it, and because in the way they make the green
machine,
beans is that it's very complicated. Whatever. I ain't chump. There was a
Yeah,
video.
but I would never say that. Whatever.
What? Yeah.
Could you explain the verse? Because you just say that alechem. Said the verse, at least that I know, is lo alechem levado yichedam, ela al Hashem yichedam. So how come you keep saying it's just like specifically? Are there like two verses? Or something? I don't understand.
No, that's like la'asud lavo, right? So lo al alechem levado yichei adam, lo rav lalechem, velo tzama lamayim ki nishmo devar Hashem. But a necessity of life is bread, and since a necessity of life is bread,
is there a chosuk that says this, or can you see? Rav keeps saying alechem yichei adam. So, but he's lo alechem levado yichei.
Right.
So how come we keep saying?
The point is that the Chazal saw that a person needs bread in order to.
So it's not a position. It's a saying of Chazal, not a second motion.
Just to understand something, because I missed the Shiur. I just want to understand something.
Okay,
Right, he's
nice.
saying you're right, only the 5 beginning, right?
Correct.
So if it's rice cake.
If it's rice, you might have a problem with Bishalako.
I guess
Or
my
because
question, just
Pesach,
to finish, my question was,
was.
does this idea of Alechem L'Chia Adam
Apply to other things? No.
Is it? Does
Just
it mean
lechem?
that because of this we're a bit less we are less careful about even the kashrus of the
No.
of the thing?
No.
So then I
Chazal made a
understand.
gzera. Chazal made a gzera that you're not allowed to eat bread that was baked by a non-Jew, even though you know that everything is kosher, right? He brought bread from his house. He brought dough from his house that he owns, and it's all kosher. He came to your house. He put it in your oven. Are you allowed to eat that bread?
No.
Then it's no, it's aser. However, what did Chazal say? Chazal said that since it's not something that's inherently aser, the ingredients aren't aser. It's not something that's treif, but we don't want you to get too close to him. So they said that when there's no bread around and there is a palter that's around that's selling kosher bread, so then it's going to be mutter.
By kind of not having to find out so much about how.
Not having to find out that the din is that if you know the ingredients are kosher, that you need to. And what about maybe they use the kelim?
But in
Stop
the
kelim, maybe
mitzvah,
they
it's
don't.
not like whatever. Stop.
What do you mean the mitzvah is not like this?
Because in the mitzvah, you never really know like you never have a perfect situation where you know exactly it's like this and like this and like that.
Why you have you can know what the ingredient. I think today even more than back in the day. Today you can walk into a store and say I'm deathly allergic to nuts, to fat, to this. I'm vegan. I'm give a whole list of things that you are. Yeah, to someone hurting my feelings, and so therefore I need to know exactly what the ingredients are. Okay, let's go. This is not sheker. It's you are ingredient. You are allergic to. Okay, let's move. Yeah, fine.
Rabbi, one last question.
Yes.
You're
We have a Jewish baker and a non-Jewish baker. The non-Jewish baker, if the bread is superior, then you can actually go to the non-Jewish baker. with
Correct.
the bread. But that's subjective. I'm sure
Correct.
the Jewish baker would say, "Hey, my bread's the best in the town." So
Correct. He for sure would say that, and you would for sure say the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But anyone, if I believe it's better,
Correct.
eat there, no problem.
Correct.
Unless
Correct. Because this is all part of the Xer. Since the Xer Chazal, so we have more room here to move it. It's not like something that's us with us. Fine.
unless it's
So
a rabbi,
that's-
though, right?
What?
There's an Indian. If there's a rabbi in town, you have to get to pronounce them before
Not
you
by
pronounce
this.
everyone else.
Yeah,
Not by this?
but not by this. Yeah.
Okay.
Again. Okay, so let's continue. So that was the. So now, what's the difference between pas palter and pas balabatim? So the Ramah says, and then the Sifal, lo mikri pas balabatim, ele imasal livnei beito. Pas balabai says that he made it for himself. Avan imasal limchol, if he made it to sell, mikri palter. Afal pisha en darko bekach. So for example, your neighbors do a yard sale and he's making bread in order to raise money for the Girl Scout cookies. So what's the din? Pas palter. If he's making bread for his own house, and then he gives you, he says, hey, I made an extra loaf. Here, take one. What's the din? Pas palter is going to be asur. V'chen palter she'asa le'atzmo mikli balabais. If the palter makes it for himself, it's still going to be considered pas balabais. And then we saw fine. So what else? 1 second. What about factories? So factories, we saw that according to Ramosha said, he quoted from like the Rabbah, who says that it's not going to be a problem of even pas palter. Why? Because you never see the person, so there's not going to be any kirba. The OU and Rabbah, they only rely on this when you have another tzirif, and the Chazon Ish argued on this din of the thing. When are times to be machmer by pas akum or pas palter? Seres Mechuva 1, Shabbos 2, and 3 is like what the Shach says, that unless the bread is better by the non-Jew.
What's the
right?
other tzirif that we use this usually?
What?
What's the other tzirif that we use it by?
Like if it's a Beis Yisrael, if it's owned by a Jew, so then maybe it has a din of a Beis Yisrael or different tzurufim. What else would be a different tzir for?
The OU is like a non-Thomas.
That's not Beis Yisraal. What would be the other
Maybe
reasons?
that comes and goes.
Right. Or someone turns on the oven, or they'll be mitzaref like a pilot light, which we'll see, or different things like that. Fine. Okay. Fine. So we saw that this din of pas akum also applies to pas baba kisnin, which means the chumras and the kulas. So if you have a rugalach also, what's going to be the din? The din is that it's going to be what? It's going to be meaning it's going to have the isser of pas akum. If a non-Jew cooks rugalach, it's going to be aser. But also, right? Good luck. But it's also going to have the kulos that if it's a palter or whatever, so there are going to be times where we're going to be much. So then we saw what's considered pas baba kisnin. We're going to get to this a little bit later. We'll get to sifav. But what's considered pas baba kisnin? So you need to have two requirements. One is that it needs to be blila ava, which means it needs to be a thick batter, but not something that's a liquidy batter. Number two, it needs to have toach lechem. Toach lechem means it has to have the shape and the form of bread. So we saw that there was what?
Waffle iron.
Right, so we saw like waffle. We'll get to all those in a minute, but we spoke about Cheerios. What would be the din with Cheerios? There we saw machlokas does it have torach lechem or not. But b'pashas you could be makel also b'tzirif with a Ramosha that it has a factory, so therefore you can probably most likely eat Cheerios on a Seres Mechuva or on during your Shabbos meal for Shalosh Shudas, right? It's the Maisa because we saw that right. We saw that you should be machmer and pas akum even during the meal, meaning not just for lechem mishnah, but even during the meal itself. So you shouldn't have, let me make lechem mishnah on these two pas Yisrael and then bring in pas palter. Right? So if Cheerios are pas palter, so then you shouldn't have them during your Shalosh Shudas. Right? They're in the summer. But if they are pas palter, meaning if they're not considered pas palter, so then it's going to be mutter, and that's b'pashtus, you can still have your Cheerios on Shalosh Shudas. Okay, next. So then we saw Siv Gimel. Siv Gimel, we saw a mystere between Siv Gimel and I think it was Seif Zayin, right? Siv Gimel says it gets Yesh mi shomer she'im palter hizmin Yisrael arei pito kepat balabait, which means what? I have a non-Jewish baker who lives next door to me, and he invites me to his house. And what's he bringing? What bread is he serving? The bread that was left over from the store. What's the din? The din is that it's going to be aser. Why is it going to be aser? Because we saw machlokas. When do you give the name pas balabais or pas? So we saw. So according to the Rabbah, do we go back buster the time that it was cooked, or do you go after where it is now? So the Rabbah says you go after when it is now, and the Rashba says that you go after when it was cooked. So in Siv Gimel, it seems that the Mechaber is passing that you go after where it is now. Now the Palter brought it to his house. What's the din? It's going to be pas balabais. If you go to Siv Zayin, the Mechaber says pas balabait asura leolam afilu kna palter mimenu afilu shalcha Yisrael lebito v'chen afilu shalcha. What's the second half? V'shel palter muteret leolam, which means that a bakery that he makes bread. So what's the din? That bread is going to be mutter. Afilu kna balabait, even if balabait buys from him. What's the din? The din is that's going to be mutter. So what do we see? That you go after when? One second. Let me answer. What do we see? That you go after the time of when it was baked. So he's called to stira. This is what the Shach asked. The Shach asked, Siv Gimel, you're saying that if the palter brings it to his house, what's the din? It's going to be usher. Why? Because now it's in my house. And the second opinion, and the second is Siv Zayin is saying that you go after what? The time that it was cooked. The time that it was cooked. It was palter, so there was going. So what's it? So 3 answers the Shach said. 3, maybe 4 answers. 3 answers. It was 3 answers. Yeah, it was 3 answers in the Shach and 1 in the Kudas. First answer of the Shach is that we don't paskin like what? Siv Gimel is the easiest one. How do we know we don't paskin like Siv Gimel? Because it says Yesh mi sheomer, which means there is one person who says. But Lemaisa, how do you paskin? You paskin like you say in Seif Zayin. That's the first answer. The second answer is that also, again, we paskin really like Seif Zayin. They go after what? The time of baking. What would be the exception? The exception would be if a non-Jew brings you to his house. Because again, in Seif Zayin, it says, Afilu kna'a bala bait mimenu, shelo הלכו באיסור זה, שלא הלכו באיסור זה, אחר מי שאפה בידו עכשיו, אלא אחר מי שהיה לו בשעת האפייה. Right? Siv Zayin means, says the Shach, we're talking about a case where a non-Jew bought it from the bakery, and then what did he do with that bread?
Gave it to you.
He gave it to you. He sent it to you, and where you're eating it? You're eating it in the comforts of your house. Therefore, it's going to be mutter. However, Siv Gimel is talking about where the Baal Bayis bought it from the baker, and then he's inviting you to his home. So since it's in the comforts of his home, what's the din? It's going to be asur, even though what? He bought it from the potter. Right? So this is a big nafkamin. According to the first answer, what's the din? According to the first answer, if the Baal Bayis buys it from the palter and he invites you to his house, the din is that's going to be mutter. Right? According to the first answer, because we don't pass it like Siv Gimel. According to the second answer of the Shach, if he's inviting you to his house, the din is that it's going to become asur. So we saw what would seem to be a nafkamina is a restaurant. If your buddy invites you, your non-Jewish buddy invites you to a restaurant, so he's buying the bread. You know the bread is kosher. So is that considered like his home? No. So what? So we saw that the Avnei Yashber said that it's not considered like his home, and since it's not considered like his home, so according to both answers, the din is that it's going to be mutter. That's the second answer. Shach, the third answer that we saw, which was quoted in the Nekudas HaKesef, was that there's a difference between a baker and everyone else. What does that mean? That a baker who bakes it in his house and there's leftover food. So maybe when he's baking it, he's thinking to himself, any food that's left over, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to bring it to my house. So therefore, again, if we saw in Seif Beis that if the baker, while he's baking, is thinking, I'm making it for my house, what's the din? The din is going to become pas ba'albais. So those are the three different answers that we saw of the steer between Seif Gimel and Seif Zayin. Again, either we don't pass like Seif Gimel, and you always go after when it was baked. And since it was baked, in the palter, it's always going to be mutter whether he invites you to his house, whether it doesn't make a difference. Answer number two is that there's a difference whether he invites you to his home or not. That if he just buys it from the palter and he gives it to you, it's going to be mutter. If he brings you to his home, it's going to be asur. Answer number three is that there's a difference between a palter and everyone else. That a palter, maybe when he's baking it, what's he thinking? That whatever's left over, I'm going to bring home, and therefore it's going to become asur. That was Seif Gimel. Seif Daled. Makom Shen Palter. Yisrael Matur, right? This is what did we learn in Seif Daled. Let's say there's no there's no palter, there's no Jewish palter. And then you bought like 6 loaves of bread. And then what happened? Shlomi's bakery opened up, right? And then what happened? So the din is, do you need to buy from him or not? So the din is that you need to start buying from him. But when do you need to start buying from him? Only when the food that you already brought is finished. That's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Again, the Ramah, how's he going to paskin?
Not a problem.
Do whatever the heck you want. You can buy from. You can always buy from the non-Jew. Siv Hey, we saw that if the bread tastes better, or if it's what. Or if it's cheaper, we saw as well that would be enough of a reason to buy from the palter. That's what the Kaf HaChaim says, that meaning it has to be cheaper. That for you it's a shas l'tchak, meaning you're not just being cheap, right? But rather that for you it actually makes a difference, right? That was what we saw from the Kaf HaChaim. He says because since it's hard for you to pay for it, so then it becomes like a shas l'tchak, and therefore it's going to become. That was Siv Hey. What?
Could we say that it's the same as regular things, that you have a chiyuv to buy from a Jew over a guy, unless it's like 30% cheaper or whatever? I don't remember exactly what the difference is and what the price limit is. Because with everything you have a chiyuv to buy from a Jew over a guy.
But here, even the Shulchan Aruch is going to be masking that even though I hold that you can't buy from this person, because it's not kosher, right? Because it's
how much is that difference that makes it?
Whatever, I think it's subjective.
Buying regular things.
I think in this case, it's subjective. Meaning it depends on the person.
It can't be less than a regular chiyuv of buying from a Jew over a guy, right? You can't say with everything else it has to be 30% more expensive by the Jew or whatever the number is, than you can buy by the guy, right? But by bread it can be 10% different. It has to be the same or more.
I don't know. Good question. Yeah.
If it has to be cheaper in a shat kind of way, why is it okay that it's just better?
What?
Why is it if it has to be cheaper in a shat kind of way? So why is it also okay if it just tastes better? That's not like that's also like kind of.
On the contrary, the Shulchan Aruch says that it's okay if it tastes better.
Yeah.
And the Kaf HaChaim says if it's okay if it tastes better, then for sure also if it's cheaper. That's included in the thing.
Right, but he says only if it's cheaper in a way that it's like
that it's considered shas l'tchak. Because again, why since it's al lechem levado yichya adam or whatever lo al lechem levado yichya adam, but basically that since it's chayi nefesh, so if it for you it tastes better, so the Chazal warrant goes there in such a case.
Right.
So if it for you it's also cheaper and it makes a difference, so then also that Chazal warrant goes there in such a case also.
Yeah, but so why does it need to be significantly cheaper? Then?
Because then it doesn't rise to Shasat Chak.
Is there a
Right? The whole heter was if it's a Shasat
Being
Chak.
better is not Shasat Chak either.
For Jews, for sure. Right?
Can we say the Shadachak right after Pesach? Because I mean, you've got the Hadash and all that other stuff, whatever and everything.
Hadash, everything. Hadash is mutter after Pesach, right?
No, I mean, whatever. I don't know, but the day after Pesach, there's no Jews.
The Rabbah says that you shouldn't do Avdallah on beer. You should really use it on wine. And the one exception a year that he says that you can do Avdallah on beer is Motzi Pesach. He says why? Because the whole week you haven't had beer, so it's going to be so geschmack for you. So you can do. That's what he says. What? Yeah.
But I mean, even if it's not
what? You could, but he says that the chatchila it's better to use wine. He says when could you use beer? The chatchila even on.
So, but even if it's not better and it's not so much cheaper, the fact that it's a day after Pesach and there's no Jews making it, that's enough to make
for
it
sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay, Sivav. We saw about the eggs, right? Remember, what's the din if you have eggs that are on top? Says the Shulchan Aruch, if there are eggs that are placed on top, the din is that it's bottled to the bread and it's not going to be considered bishalakim. Rather, what's going to be? It's going to be still pasakim. Comes to Ramah. The Ramah says no, that if there are eggs that are on top, those eggs are going to be bishul. Comes to Aruch HaShulchan, he says, what were the eggs that the Ramah were talking about? He's talking about like a shakshuka where you're pouring eggs on top. But if it's just you're spraying a thin layer, the din is that it's going to be mutter. But that's only the chiddush of the Aruch HaShulchan. According to the simple reading of the Ramah, if there are eggs that are glazed on top, it's going to be asur. The Aruch HaShulchan came and he said that no, what the Ramah meant was only like a big chunk of eggs that are on top, but if it's a small chunk of eggs,
do you hold like that?
Most people are passing like the Aruch HaShulchan, correct? Yeah.
What's the simple meaning of the Shulchan Aruch? Because it's just.
Right. So then the
what's the simple meaning of the Shulchan Aruch?
What do you mean?
The Shulchan Aruch doesn't care if it's an actual egg
meaning if you're not learning like the Aruch HaShulchan. Sorry, no. If you are learning like the Aruch HaShulchan, no.
If you're not
learning like the Aruch HaShulchan, and you're learning it like in the regular way, so then what pshat in the Shulchan Aruch? Why would the eggs be buttled to the thing? I guess you would still say, what's the ikr here? The ikr is that you're making a hamotzi on the bread. The eggs are like a flavor that are on top. What?
I think the Hoshana is the pshat. Because it says here, Mishum shemein ba'ayin. When you have like a little glaze.
The end just means why? The glaze is. You ever seen a cookie that's made with glaze or without glaze, or challah with glaze or without glaze?
You can see, but
yeah.
She'ein ba'ayin means like it's nikar. You see, it's a mamashut there, not just.
Maybe. I hear what you're saying. But I'm not sure. Because I can argue the other way that be'ein just means that it's noticeable.
It's not crazy to say that
the
Hoshana is the pshat in
the Aruch HaShulchan makes sense.
The Aruch HaShulchan, you could say he's being mechadish something, or he's just explaining the pshat here. It's not so far to say that this is the pshat here.
I think whatever the Aruch HaShulchan says is like that. But meaning, yeah. Meaning, yes.
You said if we're learning the pshat, not like the Aruch HaShulchan.
If you just read it, the first time you read it, before you read the Aruch HaShulchan, how did you read it?
Okay,
like a glaze, right?
Like a glaze. Okay, that makes sense.
So would French toast
maybe.
be pasakim?
Okay, what?
French toast, would that be pasakim?
French toast where it's like dripping in the thing. Would that be bishul? So according to the Aruch HaShulchan, I would think bepashas that would be bishul. No,
you're cooking eggs.
Bishul? That would not be pasak.
You make French toast after the bread is bread, and then you have to cook.
That's also true. That's also true.
Doesn't egg betel to the bread?
That's also true. Meaning that's another reason why it will be bishul and not pas.
Why doesn't egg betel to the bread? You're basically eating bread with the egg, but isn't egg?
But it's French toast.
It's toast.
It's
toast.
No, the bread is mutter. She's just making the eggs, right? The bread was already baked. The bread was baked, and he's just putting it in eggs. And eggs are bishul. What?
So I put butter on the thing, and I melt
butter
it. So the same thing.
Butter is cooked already. But butter is whatever. Butter is there's no fish on the
butter. Edible.
What do you mean?
So the egg is cooked.
Yeah. Okay. So that was Siva. So then we spoke about different things. So again, the Ramah says that the kulas of palter apply also to pastries. And again, the two things that we saw is that it needs to have to'ar lechem. It needs to have a thick batter. So what about bagels? So bagels, we saw Ramosha says that it's still considered pas for two reasons. Either because it's not edible after the boiling, and number two is that it's called bread. Right? What do you call a bagel? Bagel's bread. What about pizza? Pizza?
Same thing.
Pas, right? What's the pas? What about the cheese and the sauce and the thing? All that is nachal k'moshu chai, so there's no bishul on that. Rather, everything's going to be thing. Donuts, we saw machlokas, the maisa, a lot of people wanted to say that's considered pas. Why? Because it has the toar of pas, even though it's deep fried cherries we spoke about. Breadcrumbs, everyone said it has the din of pas. The only difference was that let's say you take the breadcrumbs and then you boil them in hot water, right? So you did bishul achar afia. So does it become mutter? Let's say a non-Jew made breadcrumbs in his home and for himself, and it's awesome breadcrumbs. And then he gives it to you as a gift. He says, "Look at these breadcrumbs; they're amazing. Everything's kosher, right? Could he use them or not?" So that's pasakum. But now you want to say, "Hey, let me put it in where? Let me put it in my soup while it's still on the fire, and let me do bishul on them. Is that going to be mutter or not?" So here we saw machlokas according to the Ma'aril that it becomes asa forever. But according to the Avnei Nezer, we're going to say that it's going to become yesh bishul achar afia, and therefore it's going to become mutter. And again, we saw in Seif Yud Beis that if it's not fully cooked, and then you're cooking it yourself, and then you finish off the cooking, so then it's going to be mutter. So anything that you're doing to enhance the bread, that's going to make it into pasti sauce. So again, then we saw how do you make something into pasti sauce? 3 things you need to do, or really 1 of 3 things you need to do in order to make it pasti sauce. 1, place the bread in the oven. 2, turn the fire on. And number 3, stoke the coals, blow on it, or even throw like a toothpick into the fire. And all we need is the hecker. That's the one thing I said. All we need is the hecker. And if the bread is already baked, so none of these 3 things help. Right? If it's already fully cooked, it's not going to help. Then in Seif Yud, we saw that the Mechaber said that if you turned on an oven, right, and you cooked in it 3 times, and the first 2 times you put in extra wood, but the 3rd time you didn't, what's the din? It's going to be mutter because it still has the heat from the first one. Says the Ramah, he's even more mekel, and he says that if the oven hasn't been idle for 24 hours, it's still going to be mutter. However, we saw that today this really doesn't apply. Why? Because our ovens, what happens to our ovens? They cool down completely after a little bit of time, and therefore it's not going to be. Therefore, it's not going to help. Fine.
The Sephardi look at it the other way around.
Not with our ovens. The Shulchan Aruch in this case is more machmir than the Ramah. We're saying that even the Ramah doesn't apply today because if it cools down, so then you're no longer connected to the bishul.
So
Fine.
What is the case with Shulchan Aruch when it says the 3 times? Does it have to? We're cooling off between each of the 3 times.
We're not. I think it's not cooling off. It's not cooling off in between the 3. Correct.
Why is it 3 times? Isn't it 1 time?
He's saying twice. He's saying I put it in once.
But it's still 1 time. It's not cooled off.
It's a kula because he's saying
The case the non-Jew opens the oven and then closes things like that. That's when we're having some of the questions and answers.
Right.
We said that as long as it's still hot, it's the same cooking. So what does 2 separate cookings mean?
So here again, every time you're putting something in, so according to the Shulchan Aruch, there needs to be a hecker that you're cooking, that the Jew is involved, is partaking in the cooking of the bread. So he says if the first time you partook, so then the bread's going to be mutter. The second time you also partook, so then the bread's going to be mutter. What about the 3rd time? So the 3rd time you didn't partake, right? But it's still hot and you still partook the first 2 times. So that's enough of a ma'isa that's considered that you partook in this as well. It comes to Ramah, he says you don't even need that much of a hecker. It's enough for the Jew to do it in the beginning, and then it continues the whole time. And that's when we're talking about opening and closing the oven. That's the Ramah basically, where we're being somich on that.
Shulchan Aruch should actually say if it was one of the first 2 times opening and closing the oven.
So I don't know opening. I don't know if the Shulchan Aruch would be machmir and opening and closing the ovens because there it's not like a new ma'isa afia.
Okay.
Right? I'm just opening and closing it. Unless you're saying that every time he's opening it, he's putting something in, then maybe that would be a problem.
Even if he's putting something new in?
Correct, yeah.
Right, if he's putting something new in, then cooking doesn't matter.
Fine. What about timers? What do we say about timers? So let's say the oven is off, and then you set it to turn it on. So we saw Machlokas the Minchas. They said it was going to be mutter. Rav Hainim and Rav Yashiv they said that it's going to be aser for 2 reasons. Rav Hainim says that it's going to be aser because it's a grama, and also right that it's a grama, and therefore it's not going to become mutter. Rav Yashiv says that you need a hecker. Right, because that's what he's medaik from Lashon Shulchan Aruch. And if there's no hecker, so what's the din? The din is that it's going to become. If there's no hecker, so therefore there's no hecker that the Jew did, and therefore it's not going to be. Therefore it's going to be a problem. And therefore Rabbi Yashiv was machmir. He says that if you have an oven that you turned on once and then it stays on for 24 hours, what's the din? What? It's not a good hecker. However, when Rav Shechter came, he argued on that, and he said what? Of course it's mutter. He says because why? The Jew turned it on and it stays on. So therefore it's going to be. What happens when the fuse blew and then the non-Jew turned it on? So we saw that's not considered. That's fine because it's fine. Fine. Seif Yud Aleph was very interesting. Here was the chorma that we saw when it came to pas akum. That is that if you own the bread, if the dough belongs to you, and you ask if the Jew owns the the dough, and you ask a non-Jew to cook it for you, what's the din? The din is that it's going to become usher. Why is it going to become usher? Because
you should have done it yourself.
Right, you don't have chayin nefesh anymore. Because just learn how to put it in the oven.
Except if you
And
don't know
therefore, what happens if the guy did do it? What's the din? You have to cut it in half, and then you can sell it to a guy. Why do you have to cut it in half first? Because we're worried that the non-Jew is going to sell it to who? He's going to sell it to the Jew himself, and therefore it's going to become usher. However, it came from Moshe, and he said, what happens if you own a bakery and there are no Jews in town that want to work for you? Oh, sorry. Yeah, there are no Jews in town that want to work for you. All you have are non-Jews. So now you own the dough because you own the bakery. Now the non-Jews are putting it into the oven. So here Moshe came and he was machadish, and he says that's again that. And then we go back to chayin nefesh, and it's a chayisha, and therefore it's going to become mutter for the guy to put it back into
what about
into the thing.
So that include the guy who's got like the Thailand worker because he's too old to do it himself and.
Maybe that you would include that also. Maybe.
I mean, he can't do it himself. He's just in a wheelchair.
Right, to make him the bread, would that be considered chayisha? Maybe, yeah. Right, we saw it. Right. Next, what's the next thing we saw? Right. So what happens? So again, because the Jew owns the bread, because the Jew owns the dough, so therefore it no longer has the kula of pasakum, but rather it rises to the status of bishalakum that you're going to need to be more involved in the actual cooking. Fine. Now, what about in Sif Yudal? We learned that it's batal barov. That we saw that kutach is batal barov, meaning that the pasakum is going to be batal barov. In Sif Tezvav, we saw that if you're worrying, and also in Sif Yud Gimel, this Sif Yud Gimel and Sif Tezvav says that if I am hosting a meal and I personally eat what only pas Yisrael amachmer, right? I'm a chomer. I only buy from a kosher bakery. You come and what do you bring to the house? What? Pas palter. And I don't need it, and the pas palter that you brought is really nice, so what should I do? I should make a motzi on the pas palter, and I can eat it the whole meal. And what's the reason? The Shach explained that the reason because of Eva, that we don't want to start causing a fight. The same will apply if 10 of us are eating together, and we each bring a loaf of bread, and then you bring your bread that's pas palter, you're saying, oh, what, you're not eating from my bread? So again, that's going to cause Eva, and what's the din? The din is that you're going to be allowed to eat from the thing. That's what he says. Meaning, if we're all eating, you bring pas palter, I'm allowed to eat from you. Because if I don't eat bread from them, which is the main part of the seuda, they were matter because of Eva. You should learn from here to other isurim. That's what we said. You should learn from here for Shar Yisurim. Then we discussed the case. What about different levels of kashrus? So is different levels of kashrus considered Shar Yisurim, or do we say that it's inherently mutter? So we saw basically two opinions. We saw one opinion that was, I forgot who it was, who said that if the case was the house of an almana, that this almana made a seuda for the yahrzeit of her husband, and you guys don't eat the standard or her kashrus. So there, because it's an almana, and because they're amal b'yirshasar yisurim, and she's not serving you iser, because you're showing you something that's not on your standard of kashrus. So what's the din? The din is that it's going to be mutter. The question is, if you're going to someone else's house, would the same thing apply? However, other people said that no, you shouldn't learn from here because the whole hatter over there was just because it was the case of almana. And then we asked, do you need to inform someone that the bread that you're giving them is pas akum or not? So we said, if it depends what the gzera was. If the gzera was that you can't eat the bread because it's going to lead the chakra, so the isser was on what? On the chafza. If the isser is on the chafza, so then it doesn't, even if they don't know about it, you're still going to give it to them because it becomes aser. But if the whole isser was just what? Was on the gavra, that you shouldn't eat bread that was baked by a non-Jew lest you come to marry them, so then what's the din? If they don't know, they're never going to come to marry them, and therefore what's going to be the din? It'll be mutter to give it to them. So we saw.
But
that's problematic.
That's problematic because then you're going to throw out all of pas akum.
You're a Jew giving it to another Jew.
Right. But for him it's not going to be usher, right?
Yes.
Because for him it's not going to lead to katnas. So here Steinman was like he left. What we saw recorded that he left was like a little bit in the middle. But the Maisa, most people are machmer. If you are makpid on pas akum, how far do you need to travel? So says the mechaber yesh mishomer mish nizar mipat akum v'u bederech im yesh pat Yisrael adal menuim yamtin. You should wait till dalid 3.84 kilometers, which is the distance that you need to go for kosher bread if you're makpid. Atkan pas Hakom.
Instead of saying a quick word for some story.
Oh, we can say a quick word also.
Say we're waiting for you.
No one brought a guitar. What's up with you guys?
They're always going to bring us piano.
What? I was going to bring us piano.
Having a piano there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we need more drinks?
Anybody still want
Empty bottles. Empty bottles.
I like that one. That was the best
People watching. No one watching.
Keep going. Yeah, it's good for people who want to watch from up there. 16, that's good.
set the home run record.
Okay, you guys want to hear an amazing part? An amazing part.
We should have started. How did we not start?
We should have started with an amazing part.
Alright.
Let me get you a cushion.
By the way, you look a little stressed. Yeah. You look stressed about the vision. Yeah, exactly. Maybe he's gonna be like pillow, blanket. Some grapes. I'll feed you some grapes as well.
Yeah.
Joking, I'm not the most comfortable looking guy in the room right now.
Look at the silver, huh?
You guys have night
What? So I'll say very quickly. Sorry, just because we don't have.
Look at your tree trunk.
What time do you want to
What?
finish?
The tree in the
What
middle
time
of
do you
the
want to
circle.
finish? I don't know. Right now, I don't know. What?
So I looked
Oh,
at
the
your
tree
tree.
trunk.
And
Yeah.
interesting. So, just the trunk.
Just a trunk. Yeah, you saw it from the outside.
No branches, right? No branches.
Okay, so I'll tell you this amazing work. There's basically two mitzvahs d'oraisas on Sukkot, right? There's the mitzvah. There's really three. There's the mitzvah of Sukkah, which we're being good time now, and there's the mitzvah of the Dalamina, right? And l'chor they have nothing to do with one another, right? It just happens to be that I do them on the same day, right? I put tzitzis on and I put tefillin on also on the same day, but they don't have anything to do with one another. It seems, right? So until comes the Arizal, and he says that, and I don't know if you guys have this custom. I have this custom, and a lot of people in Yerushalayim have this custom also, and that is to shake the lulav specifically in the sukkah. And if maybe you noticed in your shul, wherever you daven, that when it comes to halal, some people like sneak out. They go to the shul sukkah, they shake, and they come out. Says the Arizal, v'zeh sod gadol, and the Mishnah Berurah, which is not a Kabbalistic sefer, quotes this Arizal, and he says that there's an inyan to shake the lulav in the sukkah, and he says v'zeh sod gadol. And the question that I want to ask you, and since it's late at night already, what is this sod gadol? What is the secret? So let's try to reveal, because it's Hoshana Rabbah night, it's the night of Kedusha, it's the night of learning Shnoda. There's a custom to stay up the whole night tonight, and that custom is even before the custom of Shuas. Shuas kind of overtook, and became the popular sushi night where they bring, sushi people in the 5 towns to make sure you stay up the whole night. But yeah, there are shuls in the 5 towns where they have Japanese people standing there the entire night rolling
Serious?
sushi.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. The all night of
Oh my gosh, America.
Wow. What
Yeah.
happened?
Thank God.
Is that amazing?
By the way, isn't it official autumn though?
So exactly.
Exactly.
So
Isn't it easy to learn Torah? Not the easy issue.
Yes.
Okay.
But the Indian of Hoshana Rabbah night is even more kadum. It comes way before the Indian of staying up in Shavuos night, and a lot of people have this custom. And look around, all of Am Yisrael is learning tonight. At least maybe not the whole night, but for sure for a whole bunch of hours, everyone is learning, and it's amazing. It's incredible. So I guess why. So this is the sod, right? This is why we're revealing the sod, because it's Hoshana Rabbah night. It's night of Kedusha. It's the Chitum Adin as brought down in the Sefer Kabbalah. So I guess. So you've all heard the Medrash, I'm assuming, that says that the 4 different minim are like 4 different types of juice. You have the esrog that has tam v'reach, and that's like the tzaddik. You have the arava that doesn't have a smell and it doesn't have flavor, and that's the rasha. And then you have the hadas that has a smell and it doesn't have what? A flavor. And then you have the kapot tamarim, which is the lulav, which is the tamal, which is the date, which has a flavor, but it doesn't have a smell. So what does flavor and smell represent? So smell represents the outside of something, right? You walk into an apartment building, and you're like, wow, someone's baking challahs. And then you get into your house, and you're like, shoot, it's not my wife, right? it was someone else, right? That good smell is not coming from me, right? And so smell is something that you encounter before you actually meet the tochen, right? You walk into a factory and it smells good, so you know what's going to happen. You walk in the street and it smells, so you know that stinks, so you know that there's garbage somewhere, right? So smell represents the chitzoniut, the outside before you meet the inside. Taste is what? Something that's already inside. You're tasting it, and then you're swallowing it. It comes inside. So the tzaddik, which has tam and rech, it has smell and he has flavor. It means someone that you look at him, you're like, wow, this guy's a good yid. This guy's amazing. And then when you get to know him, it matches your assumption. The rasha is the opposite. It's someone you look at him, you're like, okay, this guy has no Yiras Shamayim, no midos, nothing, right? And then when you get to know him, what's the din? What do you see? Also the same thing. And then you have the hadas, which is something that has a good smell, meaning, but no flavor. Someone that on the outside, he looks like a God-fearing Jew, looks like he's maleh b'mitzvot, maleh b'torah, and then you get to know him, and you realize that what? He's not really like that, right? Then you have the opposite. You have the people who are on the outside, they look like they're not, right? They have no smell, like the tamarim, but inside, what do they have? Full of fire, full of flavor. I had this on, it was Erev Yom Kippur 2 years ago, I think. It was Erev Yom Kippur, and was it Erev Yom Kippur? Or was it Erev Yom Kippur or Erev Hoshana? I went to the Kotel to daven, and it was late at night. It was for sure not Erev Yom Kippur, because there was a million people there. But it might have been Erev Hoshana, and there was this Jew there with like tattoos galore, saying Tehillim. And I walked up to him, and I was like, wow, you look, I don't remember like what the conversation was, like, oh, could I have a bracha? He's like, why? I was like, listen, like, you obviously came from a different place than I came from, right? And you're still ending up over here. So that's the type of Jew that if you would meet him in the street, you would think, this guy's a guy, right? And then, but you see him at the kotel, you see who he really is. You see he's someone who's like full of fire and burning inside. So the 4 minim are the 4 different types of Jews. And on Pesach, in 7 months from now, we also have what? 4 different types of sons. You have the tzaddik, which is the etrog. You have the rasha, which is the arava. You have the sheno yudeh lishol, someone who's not asking, meaning someone who's not really interested. Someone who's not asking, someone who on the outside gives off like an impression that I'm learning and I'm this and that, but he's really not interested on the inside. He's empty on the inside. And a tam is someone who on the outside he looks like nothing, but on the inside, what's inside of him? Fire and burning. And it says in the Agada, Keneged Alba Banim B'Brat Torah. Echad Rasha, Chacham. Echad Rasha. Echad Tam. Echad Shino Yodeh Lishol. So the commentaries there ask, why do you need to say Echad, 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 Echad? So I think we might have mentioned this, but they say that why? Because all these 4 personalities are sometimes what? All folded inside of us. Sometimes we act like Chacham. Sometimes it's Hoshana Rabbah night. And we're learning, and we have amazing midos, and we're like the tzaddik. We feel like, on the outside we look like tzaddikim, and on the inside we look like tzaddikim. And then there are times in our lives where what? We're not interested, not on the outside and not on the inside. We're like the rasha, we're like the Rabbah. Then there's sometimes where on the outside we look like God-fearing Jews, and then we just took 3 steps back for Osher Shalom and Shemanas, and we're like, what just happened the past 5 minutes? Right? You have no idea. Did I say anything? Did I skip it? Did I not? Like, you have no idea what happened. So that's someone who on the outside you looked like someone who's looking in the window. Wow, look at that guy Shemanas, right? And then when you took 3 steps back, you're like, okay, I just landed back on planet Earth, and I don't know where I was for the past 10 minutes. So that's the thing. And then you have the times where a person is like sitting in the street, and he's thinking about something, he's thinking about Torah, he's thinking about learning. So on the outside, it looks like he's spacing out, but on the inside, he's filled with fire. So these 4 types of Jews are really what? Folded inside of us. And that's why it says echad, echad, echad. And that's why on Sukkot, which is the 4 minim, what's the mitzvah that you have to do with the thing? You have to do igud. Why igud? Because all those 4 we're basically saying are what? Are one. So those are the daled minim, which are 4 different types of Jews, which really are what? All within us. They're all us. That's part 1. Okay, now we revealed 50% of the secret. Now let's go for the other 50% of the secret. In the Torah, there are 4 different ways of showing affection, of showing love. When a person loves another person, there are 4 different ways to show love. Number 1 is to tell the person. Person comes home, he tells his wife, I love you, right? A friend, hey, you're the man. You're so awesome. You're the greatest guy ever, right? Speaking is one way of showing affection. Number 2 is kissing. A person is born, a baby is born, a child, a husband, a wife, what do? Kiss. Kiss is the sign of affection. A 3rd way of showing love is looking at the person, right? And this is something that actually, if you can Google this, that there are studies that show that if you want to build a deeper connection with a person, what should you do? Look at that person. Look to them in their eyes, and it causes a connection. Every chassan and kala, you open their wedding album, what's there a picture of? Right? They're looking at each other. You know what I'm talking about? Why? Why? Because when you're looking at each other, it causes a stronger bond. And that's why when you're standing at a bus station, or you're standing in line in Osherad, and someone's staring at you, and then you lock eyes, what happens? It's mad awkward, right? You don't want to look at someone that you don't know, right? Why? Because looking is a connection. And then the 4th level is a hug. When you hug a person, that's another way of showing affection. Now, what's the difference between the first 3 ways? Looking, kissing, and saying that I love you, and the last one. So here, some of the Mefarshim explain that the first 3 ways of showing affection, you have to be facing the person. In order to look at the person, in order to kiss the person, in order to tell them I love you, you have to be looking face to face. In other words, what does that symbolize? That symbolizes that we see eye to eye. The reason why I like you is because we agree with one another. A hug is when you embrace the person and you're looking beyond the person. You're saying, even though you have your flaws, I'm still going to look beyond you. A kid comes home from school and they made fun of him, right? So he starts crying. So what does the father do? What does the mother do? Gives him a hug. Why? He's saying, I don't care that other people made fun of you. And maybe you do have these flaws, right? I love you despite that. A soldier comes home from battle. What's the first thing he does when he sees his wife, his children, his parents? They don't kiss, they don't say I love you, and they don't look at each other. What do? They hug. A hug represents I love you beyond who you are as a person, beyond your flaws. Now you ready? Let's get one step deeper. This is where the Kabbalah comes in. Comes the Mefarshim and explain that we have 5 holidays in the Torah, but really there are 4, and we'll see in a minute. And each one of these represents a different way of love that God is showing His affection towards us. First holiday that we have when we became a nation is Pesach. What happened at Pesach? God said, "Go get out of Egypt. Leave Egypt." The name Pesach means to jump, but also what does it mean? Pesach, which means speaking. What's the mitzvah that we have on right? The mitzvah of speaking. The first level of love that God is showing us is the first holiday is God is telling us, I love you. Come out of Mitzrayim, come be my nation. The second level of love is the kiss. That's Shavuos. Shavuos, it says in Shiur, Yishakeni minishikot piu. Says the Gra, when did God kiss us? Kabbalat Torah. When He gave us the Torah. And it says, B'yom chatunato, the day of His wedding, Zu, Kabbalat Torah. That's when we receive the Torah. So the second level of love is the kiss. And that is when, that's Shavuos. Comes Rosh Hoshana and Yom Kippur. These are the 2 that I lump together. Those are the days of judgment. Rosh Hoshana is the beginning of the judgment. Yom Kippur is the Yom Gemar Adin, the Yom Kapara. There it says in the Mishnah on Rosh Hoshana, Kol ba'ei olam ovrim lefanecha kivnei maron. What does that mean? All people of the world pass by you. What does God do? He looks at us. It's brought down in Kabbalah that on the night of Rosh Hoshana, before, like at the beginning of the meal, everyone should look at one another. My father told me this when I told him this morning. He said that he saw it in I don't know where, in some sefer, that you should look at one another. Why? Again, Rosh Hoshana and Yom Kippur symbolize the love that God is loving us. How? By looking at us. Comes Sukkot. What is Sukkot? Sukkot is the hug. How's the hug? Comes the Arizal, and he says that you have 3 tfanos in a sukkah. In order to have a kosher sukkah, you need 3 tfanos. But even the most minimum level, Shtaim Kil Chatan, V'Shlishi Afilu Tefach, which is what? Which is the embrace. Shtaim Kil Chatan, 2 full walls, V'Shlishi, and the third one is a Tefach. And again, what does the hug represent? I'm looking past who you are, right? The kiss, the looking, the I love you is saying you're an amazing person, but we see eye to eye. The hug is that I love you beyond who you are. So here, let's understand the Kabbalah. Let's understand the sod, the secret. Ready? You take the Dalet Minim. What are the Dalet Minim? The 4 different types of Jews, which are really what? All inside of us. And God, which is the Shekhinah, which is the Sukkah, He's hugging us and He's saying, I love every aspect of you. I love you when you're an Esrog. I love you when you're Adas. I love you when you're Arava, and I love you when you're a Lulav. All parts of your life, at each moment I love you. Especially when? Especially after Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the day, the actual day is Mechaper. So God is saying, I love and I'm embracing you. I'm embracing you, and I'm looking beyond your flaws, beyond who you are as a person. And really the Chag of Sukkot is the Chag where everyone unites, right? Come to Yerushalayim, everyone is here, right? So it's a time not just where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is embracing every one of us, but we should embrace every one of each other. Meaning every single one of us, we should embrace every person and say, I love you beyond the flaws that you have, beyond who you are as a person, the things that we don't get along. I still love you beyond this point. So Sukkot is the time of Achdus. It's a time where the symbol is B'Shel Shveva. That's when everyone comes together, right? When everyone's coming and learning and dancing and having a good time. That's the time of Sukkot, and that's why it says. We'll end with this. It says that it's Erev Simchas Torah, right? Tomorrow night is going to be Simchas Torah, really Shemini Atzeres. So what does it say in the Medrash? It says in the Medrash that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, really, how long are holidays? 7 days. But why did God want to do another day? He says, Kasher alai predatchem. What does that mean? So the simple way of understanding it is that we had Elul, where we tried to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then we had Rosh Hoshana, where we said, God, Melech HaOlam, you're the king of the world. Then we had Yom Kippur, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, come, I'll erase all your sins. And then we had Sukkot, where we were dancing and we were together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So God is saying, we spent so much time together, Kasher alai predatchem, which means it's hard for me to let you go, so what? Let's add another day of Yom Tov. But here the commentaries ask, very simple. First of all, I understand, God's leaving. That after Shemini Atzeres says, bye, right? Nice, see you next Rosh Hoshana. No, we believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us the whole year. And second of all, what does an extra day help? Shkoyach, right? So you have a little bit more. But it's still Kasher alai. It'll make the Kasher alai predatchem worse, right? We had another day to get together. So explain some of them first and beautifully. What does God love? Right? He loves when we serve Him. What does He really love? Even more than when He serves us? And this is what? He loves when we love each other. He loves the Achdus. Right? The first, second, and Beis HaMikdash were destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. So He loves when we're all together. What happens on Sukkot? Sukkot is a time when everyone comes together. Everyone comes to Eretz Yisrael. People are eating with their families. Guests are coming from all over the world. Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, Kasher alai, you're all coming together. You're all being misachet. Kasher alai predatchem. What's happening after Sukkot? After Sukkot, everyone's going home. Everyone's going back to work. Everyone's going to his own different place. So God is saying, Kasher alai, not for me to disconnect from you. I'm always going to be with you. I'm going to be with you 24/7, 365 days of the year. Kasher alai predatchem. It's hard for me to see you go. So what do I want to do? Let's add one more day. Let's add one more day where everyone's together. Right? And since everyone's together, so yes, there's another day of Achdus. There's another day of everyone's together. What do we do on that day of Achdus? We take out all the Sifrei Torah. We start dancing with them. We say, what's the point of the Achdus? The point of the Achdus is so that we can dance with the Sifrei Torah. And that's why, if you notice, from Elul till Simchas Torah, there's we're climbing up a ladder of Kedusha. Comes Slichos. What happens on Slichos? We start saying Slichos. There are times where we open up the Aron Kodesh, right? We open it up by Shema Koleinu. We get to Rosh Hoshana. There are times where we open up even more, right? We open it up different parts of davening. It becomes right. Also, Seres Tshuva. There are times of Avinu Malkeinu. Every day we start opening up the Aron. Comes Yom Kippur. Not only are there times that we open up the Aron, Ne'ilah. What happens in Ne'ilah? It's open the whole time. Comes Sukkot. Not only do we open up the Aron, what do we do by the Hoshana? We take one out and we put it in the middle. And what does everyone do? Dances around. They come Simchas Torah. Not only do we take out the Torah, everyone grabs the Torah. Everyone grabs the Torah. And what do we do with it? We dance with it. We're on this level where we're growing. We're getting higher and higher. Where the goal is to be sameach with Simchas Torah, to be happy with the Torah that we're learning, and to dance together with the Torah, and to dance together to have Achdus. And that's the Sod Gadol that we revealed here on the night of Hoshana Rabbah. Tavshinayim Tes. We real here in the Sukkah in Yerushalayim, and we should be zocheh to have a lot of Ahavas Torah. What's a good song? A learning song. Hashem Demima, Torah Hashem Demima, Torah Hashem Demima, Meshivas Nafesh, Meshivas Nafesh, Torah Hashem Demima, Torah Hashem Demima, Torah Hashem Demima, Meshivas Nafesh. Yedus Hashem Echana, Machimas Besi. Yedus Hashem Echana, Machimas Besi. In yeshiva, when I was in yeshiva, so there. On Simchas Torah, they didn't have enough Sifrei Torah for everyone to dance with. So what did everyone dance with?
Sorry.
The Gemara. Right. So this Simchas Torah, you guys can take a Shulchan Aruch. You guys made a Kinyan in the Shulchan Aruch this year in the past 6 months. Don't be embarrassed. Dance with it. Okay, guys ready? Bishalakum, here we go. Whoever needs to leave can leave. Don't feel embarrassed to go. But whoever wants to stay. Okay, here we go. Okay, Bishalakum, Siman, Kuf, Yod, Gimel. Come Chazal. And they say like this. If you have kosher food, kosher ingredients, kosher pots in your house, doesn't matter whatever, let's not get to in your house yet. But basically kosher ingredients, what's the din? The non-Jew cooks with it. The din is that the food is going to be asur. Why is it going to be asur? We saw 2 reasons. Either because of chatanos, that you're going to get to know him too much, you're going to have marrying. Number 2 is you're going to have kashrus issues. Right. So that's the problem with Bishalakum. Then we saw machlokas. Would the same thing apply to non-religious Jews as well? We saw here and there different opinions. And Rav Avada, what he said was that it's best for a mashgiach to turn on the oven or to have some sort of involvement, even by non-religious Jews, because if the din is because of, meaning there's no chatanos over here, but if it's because of kashrus, then you should have the Jew who's in charge, who's watching on top of it. Then we spoke about a ger. What happens to the ger who converts in the middle? Right? He made food. Remember this case that happened? Yeah. He made food and then he went to the mikvah and he invited everyone for the Suda. So what's the din? Does the food become asar, or does the food not become asar? So we saw that the Sefer Ben Yisrael Am said that food is going to become asar, and then we saw the Shut Avnei Zikaron said that you have to differentiate, right? Meaning, do we say that it became asar, and since it becomes asar forever, or do we say that now once he's Jewish, Chazal never made a gzeira of bishalakum on who? On a Jew, right? If you have a Jew that intermarries, right. And then he cooks food, are you allowed to eat his food? Yes, even though his kids are not Jewish. Why? Because when Chazal made the Gzera, who did they make the Gzera on? Non-Jews. Just on non-Jews. They didn't make it on Jews themselves. So this person who's now is a Jew, right? So there's no bishalakim on him, right? So maybe and also what? So there's no problem with chatnos, A. And B, there's no problem with kashrus, because now that he's Jewish, what's he saying? He's telling you, now last night when I made the food, it was kosher. Everything was kosher. So Lamaisa, how did they pass it? So what some of them first explained was that maybe when he made it, it became asr at that moment. It became asr at that moment. It's going to stay asr. But who is it going to be asr for? Only for everyone else. But for him himself, it was never asr. Why? Because when he made it, he was a guy. Right? Of course he's allowed to eat it. Now that he's Jewish, It's also mutter because he made it.
There's also another. If he made like a turkey, and while it started cooking, he decided to go to the mikvah and dip, and then come back. If it's not in the time for it to finish cooking, or at least to get to that level of
Maybe.
Then that, what's his name? The robber guy. Then
What?
the robber.
Oh, the robber guy.
The robber. What's his name? Is
Yeah.
the Jew side. The robber guy. Anyways, the thing is, with that, he could come back. And he started it then, but because he didn't finish it, the Jew finished it.
Or he could
We
ask
say,
the Jew,
if he,
yeah.
well, he could just touch it or move
Right.
it, turn it around or something. Whatever.
Okay, let's continue. Excellent. Now, so we saw there are two exceptions. Says the Mechaber and Sefal. Let's read it. Davar sheno nechal k'mo shuchai. So bishul akum is anything that a non-Jew eats, cooks is going to be usher, unless there are two exceptions, unless the food is eaten raw. And option number 2 is that it's olal shulchan malachim, which means that it's
unless it's not.
that it's sorry, meaning if it's served at a king's table, it's going to be asr. But if it's something that's not served at a king's table, even though it's not eaten raw, I mean you need to cook it in order for it to be edible. The din is going to be what?
Mutter.
It's going to be mutter, correct. So now,
So gam v'gam or
either or, right? Meaning if it's something that's eaten raw, even though it's served at a king's table, it's still going to be mutter. Or something that's not served at a king's table, but still you cook it. The din is that, the din is that it's going to be mutter. So then we saw what's the gradation or the criteria of something that's nechal k'mo shuchai. So we spoke about, let's say, ginger that you eat with a piece of bread. So is the ginger considered nechal k'mo shuchai? You're eating with a piece of bread, right? You wouldn't eat it just by itself. So here the Gilui Masha, according to the Magen Avraham, he says that yes, still it's considered nechal k'mo shuchai. Why? Because the ginger is the ikar, and that is eaten chai. And since it's eaten chai, you're just right, and you're using the bread to eat the ginger. So therefore, since it's nechal k'mo shuchai, the din is that it's going to be. If a non-Jew cooks the ginger or cooks the food, the din is that it's going to be mutter. Now, foods. What do we say about foods that are usually eaten raw, right? But they haven't ripened, right? So we saw. So the example was that pears, right? Pears that haven't ripened, and they won't ripen. Meaning like those bananas that you sometimes buy that just stay raw forever, right? So and then you cook them, and then a non-Jew cooks it. So do we look at the entire species, or do we judge each one by itself? So we saw two opinions. The Gilui Marsha says that you go after the species, and therefore the din is going to be that it's considered it's going to be, but there's not nechal k'mo shuchai. However, we saw from the Darkei Tshuva, he wanted to be medayik from the Ramah to say that the din is that it's going to be asr, because he says that if you have peas that are in the field, and right now they're eaten raw, but soon they're going to not be edible to be eaten raw, the din is that you're still allowed to eat it, not because it's nechal k'mo shuchai, but rather because it's not olal shulchan malachim. Meaning, that's not considered nechal k'mo shuchai. Something that's edible, and then it becomes asr, and then it becomes not edible, that's not considered nechal k'mo shuchai, and the same thing is going to be in the flip case. But l'maisa, most people pass like the Gilui Marsha, which is the din that what?
Mutter.
Yeah, it's going to be mutter. Now, next, some people eat a particular food raw, and some eat it cooked. So what do we say? Here also we saw kind of a machlokas, but l'maisa l'dina we saw that you go after the roe. What about pasteurized milk?
Over the country, though.
We'll get to that in a minute. What?
You're not doing it to cook it, you're doing it to kill the bacteria.
Correct. So what's that similar to? Which case that we saw later on? To the burning of the head of the sheep, right? You're burning the head of the sheep in order to get the hair out.
That's fine.
And
it's
you
not
cook
cooking.
the
You're doing
cheeks,
it
so
not to
right?
cook.
You're not doing it not to cook. So you're also for the pasteurization. You're not doing it to cook.
Except that the milk was edible before. And
That's another reason.
and the milk said it's not.
Correct. That. Correct.
Or if a guy puts on oven without knowing his food.
What?
That's a problem. Puts on the oven without knowing his food inside to clean the oven, not to cook. Clean it.
But it's not nechal k'mo shuchai. Once everyone's cooking it, it might not be nechal k'mo shuchai. That was the other reason. Right. In a yeah. Correct. What?
That's also like if a guy puts on an oven to clean an oven.
Correct.
And there's food inside. Food is mutter.
Correct.
Puts on the oven to
Correct.
cook, and the food's also.
Excellent. So then, what about different countries? Differences amongst different countries. So you follow the country, right? So we saw from
only if you live there.
So that was the Shevet Alevi. We said only if you live there, but it's mashma from the Aruch HaShulchan that any country you go to, that you can follow that country.
Even
That
as a tourist?
what? That's what it's mashma from the Aruch HaShulchan. The reason why it's mashma because again, it's not going to lead to kirva in that area, because in that area there's not going to be there's not going to be kirva. Now, sushi.
That's okay, that's Sfardi? What
What?
is Sfardi say? Sfardi say that you can't eat it, even as a tourist.
I don't know. I just those are both Ashkenazi.
You don't know.
I don't know what the Sfardim say in that case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sushi. So what do we want to say? We want to say that since sushi is eaten raw, so therefore what? Any fish that a non-Jew cooks, what's the din?
No problem.
The din is that it should be mutter. Why? Because everyone eats it raw. It's like an apple. What do you eat an apple? Raw. So now non-Jew makes baked apples. Could you eat it? Yes. Why? Because the apples are nachal kamoshu chai.
Right.
So fish also. People eat fish out. Eat it raw. So now, whenever a non-Jew should cook fish, what should be the din? He should be allowed to eat it. Comes with Shach, and he says no.
Right.
There's different reasons that are in it.
Okay.
And he says right. He says the reason why you can't eat fish that's cooked by a non-Jew, because when you have sushi, what's the ikr? The ikr is rice, and that's why we saw that video from that chef. What was his name?
Chef Shisuda.
Chef Shisuda. Chef Shisuda. He said that the ikr point is the rice, and since the rice is the ikr and the fish is the tafel, so what we don't say that it's nachal kamoshu chai. We don't say that the fish is considered nachal kamoshu chai because it's not the ikr, as opposed to the ginger, which we saw before. What was the ikr there? The ikr there was the ginger. The bread was just eaten in order to dull the flavor. But here the ikr was in sushi's rice, and therefore what bracha do you make on sushi?
Mizonos.
Mizonos. You don't start picking out the stuff and making 15 brachas. Rather, you should make a mizonos on the rice itself.
Don't Father of Chapter say fish can be eaten cooked by non?
So not meaning there are other reasons to be asa. The other reasons to asa are also because most people don't eat sashimi. Or whatever, that's part of this. But yeah, the question is, was it nishbashit or not?
Except in Japan.
But when I what?
In Japan, you probably could.
Huh?
In Japan, you probably could. No.
No, we said rove in Japan. You looked it
So
up.
the question, right? So we googled what happened in Japan. In Japan, most
rove.
people eat the fish cooked there. That's what we saw.
But outside of Rav Shefter.
Outside of Shachter, a lot of people asked her anyways. So when I spoke to Reb Aryeh Leibowitz from the Five Towns, who's going to be doing this in the Five Towns. So he told me that he was in the OU when they were donning about sushi, whether it's nachal k'moshu chai or not, and he said that sashimi was like the real curveball that came in, and do the majority of people eat sashimi or not? And he we didn't flush out the discussion. It was just like I was talking to him about what we were doing. So he says it could be that if the majority of the world eats sashimi and eats raw fish, so then what would be the din? The din is that would be considered. It would be mutter to have non-Jew cook fish. These are things that change with the times, right? It depends. What is nachal k'moshu chai or not? Fine. So then, what about onions? So onions, we said that b'pashtus what? Their onions are eaten raw, but when are they eaten raw? They're usually tough. So according to Shachter, b'pashtus, you're going to have a problem with bishul on onions. But according to other people, they said that no. Why? Because it's nachal k'moshu chai in a salad. What?
If they're going to be cooked by a non-Jew, but anyway in your meal they'll be tougher. So then what's the halacha? Meaning we said really they're not nechal right? Because when they're cooked, we said that, right?
By who? By fish?
No, by onions.
Oh, by onions. Onions are nachal k'moshu chai. In a salad, on their burger, they're usually eaten raw, right? But they're eaten raw in a mixture. No one takes an onion and say, you would make a shakal
same
onion.
thing, you're also going to eat it in a mixture.
What?
You're also going to eat the onions in a mixture when they're cooked.
Not necessarily. Right? If I'm putting an onion on the grill, people will eat that straight up.
Just the onions.
Yeah, I eat that.
But if they
no?
but
You're with me on this one?
But if you eat them cooked by a Jew as part of, as in by a non-Jew, as part of as a mixture, they're just there happens to be onion in the meal. So then what's the din?
So then you'd go after rove, right? If you have
okay, that's it. Okay.
Then you go after rove if the thing that he was made wasn't thing. Yeah.
Can we go after rove? It's a single distinct item. You can pick the onions out.
It seems like that, right? What is the Mechaber says in Sif Beis? Irav davar nachal k'moshu chai davar sheno nachal k'moshu chai ubishlam ovet kochavim im ha'ikar midavar sheyesh bo mishum bishul uvedei kochavim asur v'im lav mutar. He doesn't even say rov. He says ikar. If the ikar is mutter, so then it's going to be mutter. Even though I would imagine.
Because things like kashrut, etc. If it was
if it was there by kashrut, you would have to take it out.
Have to take it out.
I don't know.
So we're talking about a mixture where things are indistinguishable, or is it?
No.
Well, I suppose we did the breadcrumbs and kutaf, which would be noticeable.
That would be what?
Noticeable.
That would be noticeable in pashtus. And there it was mutter. Good, right.
So do we say though that onion rings? Because even though most of the time people eat onions raw or whatever, but but no one eats it for the batter. No one says I want the. I mean, it's the bracha shek. The bracha is adama, right? I mean,
just to hold the batter.
The bracha is shek kol and onion rings.
First of all, it might be
Are you eating it's onion rings, not
flour based?
Everyone eats it. No one's gonna.
No, we take out the onion. If you took out the onions of the ring, when you eat you just take a bite and it pulls out the whole onion and you give someone else, I'm gonna be like, okay, thank you for giving me this chunk of batter. You know,
The batter?
deep
Of course.
fried
Why?
batter.
Have you ever had Dougie's unbelievable onions?
Onion rings. Not like,
If people like the batter, it's about done.
Yeah, exactly.
Onion rings is so cool. Yes, let's go.
Onion rings. What bracha do you make on onion rings? I thought you make a adama. Unless it's
it's a ring. It's a
if you're eating for the outside, so then it would be a mizonos. Assuming that it's a mizonos. All right. I know, but yeah, let's move. Yeah. Okay. Next. That was Nechel Shmol Gulai. What about Ola Shulchan Malachim? Right. So we spoke about something that's Ola Shulchan Malachim. So we saw from Rabbi Zriel Obrach. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's served at the presidential dinner, but rather, what does it mean? That it's something that you would serve your guest or a Shabbos table or whatever it is that you would serve with people. Fine. So what about bad tasting food that you eat for health purposes? So we said that's mutter. Why? Because there's no chashash kirva, even though it would be olah shulchan malachim. Fine. Now what about foods that are cooked in a place where they are olah shulchan malachim and then they're brought to a place where it's not olah shulchan malachim? For example, we said hummus. Where in Israel maybe it is olah shulchan malachim and then you bring it to America. So we saw here that there was a machlokas that Rafak wanted to say that since it became, let's say I made the hummus in Israel, and then a guy made the hummus in Israel, and he brought it to America, the din is that it would be Aser. Why? Because this is what Rafal said, he says, because it was made Aser. But Rosh Sternbach says that no, it's not going to become Aser. Why? Because when I made it here, it was never Aser for those people. It was only Aser for who? The people in Eretz Yisrael. So for the people in America, it's going to be mutter. What about foods that could be served in different forms?
Potatoes.
Right? For example, potatoes. You have potatoes, mashed potatoes, French fries, potato chips. So here also we saw a huge machlokas, or Sternbach says that you follow, if it's Ola al Shulchan Malachim, it's going to become Asar. Meaning, if any form of it is Ola al Shulchan Malachim, it's always going to become Asar. So therefore, potatoes, French fries, rice, because rice is Ola al Shulchan Malachim, or rice, rice crackers, right? All those things are going to be a problem of Bishul Akum. But Rafal said that it's not going to be a problem of Bishul Akum. Why? Because you go after each single thing. Is this thing going to be Ola Shulchan Malachim? If it's not Ola Shulchan Malachim, so then there's no kirva the way that it's formed. A bag of chips. No one's inviting you to his house and saying, "Here, come have a bag of chips," except my house, right? Fine. So
they switched they're both making on different parts.
correct. Yeah. So what was his raya? His raya was from Pasakum. Remember in Pasakum, what did we say a minute ago or whatever, a few minutes ago? We said that Chachamim aser bread that are made from the 5 grains, but if it's made from rice or kitiniot, they're not considered pasakim. It says the Ramah, it's also not going to be aser. This bread that you're making out of rice is not going to be aser because of bishul akum. If it's not olah shulchan malachim, mashma that if you make it in a way that is olah shulchan malachim, it is going to become aser. So you see, it seems like a clear ayah from the Ramah that if it is olah shulchan malachim, it's going to be aser, and if it's not olah shulchan malachim, it's going to be mutter. Basically, you judge each food by the way that it's being served and not by the thing on top. Fine. So that was that. French fries machine would fall into the same category because it's French fries. And we saw more reasons to be machshir, to be makel, because A, there's no problem with kashrus because nothing's going in, and 2, maybe you're pressing a button, so there's no zero. Coffee. What about coffee? So coffee, we saw it is olah shulchan malachim. Serve it at right. We're eating it right now. Some of us, and it's not eaten raw. It needs to be cooked. So what's the reason? So we saw Tosfos says that beer is not olah shulchan malachim for 2 reasons. One, because beer is not olah shulchan malachim, and 2, it's bottled to the water. So same thing by coffee. We're going to say that the coffee, the whatever, the instant mix is bottled to the water, and that's why you're also making shahakol and not an adama, and therefore since it's bottled to the or AIDS, right? So if you're making a shakal and it's bottled to the water, so there's no bishul on the water, for it's going to be mutter. Cholent we say is olah shulchan malachim, and then we got the soup croutons. So we said soup croutons aren't olah shulchan malachim, even though when you do serve soup on a shulchan malachim, people put the croutons. You still need to view each thing by itself. And here the soup croutons are kind of right. They're not served by itself. So therefore, right, exactly the same rice, salt and pepper. We're not going to say that's going to be olah shulchan malachim. So that was the 2 criteria to make something not bishul akum. 1, it's nachal kamo shuchai. If it's not kamo shuchai, there's no bishul akum. And 2, if it's not olah shulchan malachim, it's also not going to have a problem of bishul akum. Then we said in Sif Beis that if you mix something that's nachal kamo shuchai with something that's not nachal kamo shuchai, what do you go after? You go after the ikar. Right, the ikar, which means the main part. However, we saw in Sif Dalit, in Sif Gimel. Sif Gimel is the panada. What was the panada? Panada was this bread that's made with meat, fat, and the meat fat gets absorbed inside. It says the Shulchan Aruch. What's the din over there? The din is that it's going to have a problem of bishul akum. So we ask, what do you mean? Shouldn't you go after The ikr. What's the ikr? The ikr is the bread. What bracha do you make on the panada? Hamotzi, right? Just like we said by coffee. Coffee, what's the, even though the, what's the ikr here? The ikr is the water, and therefore it's not bishalakum, right? Or when you have a mixture, right? So you go after the ikr. What's the ikr over here? The bread. So that was the question of the Aruch HaShulchan, right? Why is the panada bishalakum if A, the bracha is hamotzi, and B, the ikr is the bread.
Aren't you not allowed to make milchig bread?
It was pasakum, right? So why over here is going to have a problem with bishalakum? So says the Aruch HaShulchan like this.
It's not standalone bread.
He says,
Right.
He answers like this. He says, first of all, the ikr over here is the fat, right? Meaning the meat fat that's going inside. That is the ikr. Why is that the ikr? Because if you didn't have that, what would it be called? It would be panada. It would just be a piece of bread. What makes it a panada is the meat, right? Is the fat that's inside, and therefore the ikr here really is what? The panada is the fat, and the fat there's bishul. What about coffee? We said by coffee that you go after the bracha, right? Meaning the bracha is a shahakol. Even though, what's the ikr thing in the coffee? Let's phrase it that way. What's the ikr part of the coffee? Not the water, the coffee. Right. So then if the coffee is the ikr part of the coffee beans, right, by the panada. Why is panada bishalakum? Because what's the main ingredient? The fat, right? So if the main ingredient is the fat, so the bishalakum is on the fat. So what about coffee? What's the main ingredient of the coffee? Not the water, it's the coffee bean. So why should it be asur? So here the Aruch HaShulchan was mechalik, and he said that it changed forms. That by the, meaning it always stayed food. By the panada you had fat, which was food, and then it went into what? Went into food, which is the bread. But when you ate in the coffee, you had food, and it became what? It became a liquid. So since it changed the form, so therefore he was mechadish that the din is that it's going to be considered. It's not going to be considered over there. It's not going to be considered bishalakum. Rather, the ikr is the water. And even though you're right that the flavor is what's the most important part, but since it changed from food form to water form, so therefore it's not going to be considered bishalakum, but rather just.
Wouldn't this be a question on the Shachter with sushi?
What?
Wouldn't this be a question on Shachter for sushi?
Why?
Because one, with the panada we make a motzi, we don't care that it's the meat, right? Just like with rice, we make a mizonos. And two, the ikr is if there was no rice, if there was no fish there, it would be rice. It would not be sushi.
No, you can.
So in economy, but one second. By rice, by the chiddush of Rav Shachter was that the rice is the ikr.
The main part.
So is the main part. What? No, here the bread is not the ikr.
Because you're gonna order different sushis based on the fish.
Yeah, it's based on the fish.
Not based on the rice they have.
They have the same rice, correct?
They have the same rice in economy, but the ikr.
It's not ikr bracha beseder, but that's not why you're ordering what you're ordering.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, you go when it comes to nachal k'moshu chai, we go after the ikr. We go after what's the main thing? What's the main thing over here?
In sushi, the fish is like a topping.
It's not just because of the bracha, right? Because over here it's hamotzi. But what's the ikr? What's the ikr in? What's the ikr in the panada? It's not the hamotzi. It's the fat.
I just think it's the fish also.
What? Fine in economy. You might think it's fish, but the sushi masters explain that what?
When you go into the sushi store, you're ordering. They're right though. When you go into, I don't even eat sushi, but when you go into the sushi store, you're ordering for the sushi, not for the rice. That's
No.
Yeah,
Again,
you don't always eat fish. You have all kinds
think
of
of sushi like a pizza.
Yeah.
When you go to a pizza shop, you order a pizza, and on top you order mushrooms, you order like.
Sometimes
peppers,
you have it
onions.
raw. That's not rice.
Pizza that's eaten.
No, so in sushi, what goes in the middle is the topping. You're ordering a roll of rice.
No, that's you can't compare.
That's what Rav Shachter holds, and that's what Chef Yasuda holds, who's an amazing chef. Meaning all the real sushi experts say that the main thing in the sushi is the rice.
Does he eat turkey?
What?
Does he eat turkey? This guy?
Who?
Rav Suda?
He's not a Rav.
He's a chef.
It's a chef. He's a guy.
Does he eat turkey?
I don't know what he eats.
No, that's a big question. If he doesn't eat turkey, then he just looks like a chef.
This is meat bread. What about dairy bread? If we can't make dairy bread, you need it. But if a non-Jew makes a dairy bread, are we allowed to have that?
No.
Thanksgiving is not
For the
a
same
holiday.
reason? Or bishalakum, or because because there's a whole thing about dairy bread?
I don't know.
There's a whole ruling.
There's a whole
about
thing of dairy bread. There's also fleshik bread. Fleshik bread and
No,
dairy bread is the
this
same
is
thing.
fleshik bread. No,
Right,
there's a
fleshik
whole.
bread is usher. This is talking about where it's made in
Are
a
we
certain
allowed to
form.
make fleshik bread?
No.
No, that's
Or dairy bread? I thought it was only dairy bread.
No, both.
No.
Right. Unless it has a
shape.
small amount or a different shape, right?
But this you're allowed to make.
What?
What is this panita, whatever you call it? You're not it's a meal.
That's
it's
not
a dish. It's not fish.
Right,
it's
but if it's
bread.
made in a certain way, it's going to be
Because made in a certain
fine.
way.
So that was the That was that. Now, Siv Dal. Siv Dal, this is where it got interesting. This is where the kulos started coming in. So we saw really before Siv Dal, we saw machlokas in the Beis Yosef. What's the din with non-Jewish help in your house? So you have someone who comes in, every Friday to help you clean the house, right? So that person made food in your house. What's the din? Is it going to be mutter? So here we saw machlokas. According to the Avram, which was the Ravid, he said the food is going to be mutter. Why is food going to be mutter? Because there's no kirva. When you're paying someone and they're listening to your orders and listening to everything that you're saying, so the din is that's not going to lead to kirva, and there's not going to be a problem of bishul akum. Rabbeinu Tam argued on that, and he said, of course there's going to be bishul akum, even if it's in the comforts of your house. That was by non-Jewish help. What about by a slave? Like back in the day, where you can actually own a slave, a Jew can own a slave. What would it be if a slave cooked for you? So here the Ramban said that it's going to be mutter. Why? Because he doesn't have the status of full-fledged guy. Why does he not have a status? Because he's yours. He can't do malacha for you on Shabbos.
Even his kids are yours, though.
Correct, right? So he can't do malacha on Shabbos. So therefore, what's the din? The din is that if he makes food for you on Shabbos, if he makes food for you, the din is that it's not going to be bishul akum. The Ra'ah says tov to be machmir, and the Rashba says what? Aser completely. Comes the Shulchan Aruch, and he says like this: Yesh mi shematir b'shvachot shelanu, v'yesh mi sheoser v'afilu b'diavad. Which means what? There are those that are matir with our shvachot, and there are those that are asering afilu b'diavad. Now, if you go back to Sif Aleph, says the Ramah, says the Shulchan Aruch in the last line, he says afilu b'klei Yisrael, even if the non-Jew cooked it in a non-Jew in your kli. Uvivet Israel, and in the house of a Jew, asur mishum mishul ovet kachamim. So in Sif Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch says, if a non-Jew cooks in your house, it doesn't say what type of non-Jew. Non-Jew cooks in the house, the din is the food is going to be asur. In this Sif, he says, yes, what?
It's going to be what?
Asur, correct. And in Sif Dalid, he says there are those who are matir with our shvachot, and then he says there are those who are asuring even in our shvachot and even b'diavad. And that is what? And when you have a machloket yesh v'yesh in the Shulchan Aruch, we paskin like the second yesh. When you have a stam v'yesh omrim, you paskin like the stam. But when you have a yesh v'yesh, you paskin like the second yesh. And over here it seems that the Shulchan Aruch is being machmir, that even in shvachot shelanu it's going to be aser v'afilu b'diavad. Comes the Ramah and he says u'b'diavad yesh lismoch adivrei mitirim. B'diavad you could be makel like the first opinion, right? And that's why, right? And he says v'afilu lechatchila noagin la'akel bevet Israel. Even lechatchila where we are making the house of a Jew shashvachot v'avadim mevashlim bevet Israel ki efshar shelo yichateh echad mibnei habayit me'at. Because one of the Jews for sure is gonna stoke the coal. So again, now we need to understand which case is the Shulchan Aruch and Ramah talking about. We saw machlokas in the Beis Yosef regarding live-in help. We'll call from now on a maid, and then we saw machlokas regarding a slave. So regarding a maid, the Rabbi Ram was matir, the Rabbeinu Tam asin, and regarding a slave, we saw that the Ramban was matir, the Ra'ah said tov to be machmer, and the Rabbah says the Rashba says that you should be machmer even b'diavad you should be machmer. So comes the Shach, and he gives basically 4 explanations. The Shach Sivkat and Zayin, you see inside, but he gives 4 different ways how to understand this Shulchan Aruch. So option number 1 is that the Ramah is that the Shulchan Aruch, when he says Yesh Misho Oser Shvachot Shelanu, is referring to what? The Rashba, which is even slaves, full-fledged slaves, right? Full-fledged slave is going to be aser, so Kol Shekain, a maid is going to be aser. Comes the Ramah, and he says, no, you could be meko like the Ra'ah, that b'diavad, if a slave cooks in your house, it's going to be mutter, right? That is the first way of explaining it. The second way of explaining it is that the Shulchan Aruch is talking about a case, again, like the Rashba, where we're talking about a slave. But comes the Ramah, and he says, U'v'diavad yesh lishmocha divrei metirim, in our house, meaning even a live-in maid, you could be meko. And then the third explanation of the Shulchan Aruch and Ramah is that the Ramah is saying, the Ramah is really being matir because of the last reason, that most likely a Jew stoked the coals in the house, and therefore it's going to be mutter whether it's a maid or a slave. Why? Because the Ikar Kula of the Ramah is referring to which case? The case where you most likely stoked one of the coals, and that's why it's going to be mutter. The fourth explanation of the Shach is that the Shulchan Aruch is being machmir with a maid, and the Ramah is being makel, and he's saying that no, even a maid is going to be mutter. Why? Because because there's no chashash kirva when the Jews are giving orders. Fine, so that's the four different ways how to attend the shulchan. Lamaisa, how do we pass it? Comes the Aruch HaShulchan, and he says like this: that the Ramah is mekil only when you have lechatchila, only when you have three of the following possibilities. Number one, it's in the house of the Jew. Number two, you're paying her. So since you're paying her, there's less kirva. And number three is that you most likely stoke the coals, and since you most likely stoke the coals, what's the din? Therefore, it's going to be mutter lechatchila. What happens if you have two out of the three? Comes the Aruch HaShulchan and he says mutter b'diavad, and the Taz and Sivkat and Gimel also says it towards the last line. He says that it's going to be mipasha. It's going to be mutter b'diavad. So what would happen in the case? This is the case that we spoke about. Someone's old grandmother who needs a living help, and there's and you're paying her, right? So you're paying the Filipino, and she's cooking in your grandmother's house, right? And it's cooking the food. So what would be the din? The din there, according to Rav Asher, right? That's considered a shas l'chak, and you have two out of the three. A, it's a bais Yehudi, and two, you're paying her. So therefore, if she does make you food, it's going to be mutter. However, what's the best thing you should do? You should be stomach on the Ramah, which we're going to see in a second. That you should leave like a shiva candle there, or have a pilot light for the stove that she can light from that stove. And then we spoke about yeshivos and wedding halls that are owned by Jews. There we saw that a lot of the Mefarshim explained that that's considered a Beis Yisrael. So we said if you walk into a catering hall and you saw that they already started to cook, so b'diavad, there's what to be samich on to take the food out to the people. Why?
Even Sfardim?
What?
Even the Sfardim?
No. Even the Sfardim? No, Sfardim no. There's all Ashkenazim because Sfardim are machmir in this case, right? There's only according to the Ramah, right? So that there's reasons to be makel. Why should be makel? Because A, it's a Beis Yehudi, the restaurant, the catering hall is a Beis Yehudi, and two is that you're paying them. What about factories? So here again, we saw that Ramosha said that factories are going to be mutter. Why? Because there's no chashash kirva. So if they're making, some sort of fish in a factory, and then you can buy it, at the store at a local supermarket, the din is that it's going to be mutter because there's no chashash kirva. In such a case. What about a restaurant? So here we saw that some people wanted to apply this din to the restaurant. Why? Because you won't see most of the chefs aren't outside. They're actually right in front. So here Rav Shturmach was very harif against this. And he says that people who have that svara are reformed, right? He says like a very reformed svara. He says, why is that? He says, because the whole gzeir, he says, I personally argue on the factories. He says, I think that factories is what Rav Shturmach says. That factories are going to be usher. He says, but even if you want to be making factories, not in the same place where you're eating, right? The chef is cooking 10 feet away from you, and he's bringing out the food. Of course, that could lead to kirva, right? In a factory, I can understand where you'll never know, Shantchez who turned on the oven, you'll never meet him, right? But the chef who's in the back, who's cooking your food, if the food is really good, that could lead to kirva, and therefore Shturmach says that in a restaurant you shouldn't be machmir. We said therefore halacha lemaisa, if someone is traveling and he buys fish that's kosher and he double wraps it and goes into a restaurant, he's having a business meeting, don't tell the chef, hey chef, throw it on the fire.
Do it yourself.
Why?
Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. Go to the back and say, hey, do you mind if I put it on? Unless what? Unless that restaurant, which is a non-kosher restaurant, is owned by a Jew, because then maybe it has the status of Beis Yisrael, maybe yes, maybe no.
What happens
Fine.
if they don't let you do that? I mean,
Don't eat the fish. Don't eat.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
it,
Buy tuna fish. Fine. That was Seif Dalit. What about Seif Hey? Seif Hey was when you cook unintentionally. So remember we spoke about this, right? So it depends how you cooked unintentionally. If you had in mind to cook,
Right.
but unintentionally you also cooked something else, then it's going to be usher. But if you didn't have in mind to cook at all, what's it then? It's going to be mutter. That was Seif Hey. Then we went to Sib Zayin for a second, right? Correct. Went to Sib Zayin, which is how do you make something into Bishul Yisrael? You have a non-Jew who is making the food, you want to make it into Bishul Yisrael. How do you make it into Bishul Yisrael? So we saw the Shulchan Aruch says, let's take a step back. The Gemara says that there's one of three ways that you need to do in order to make bread pas Yisrael. A, remember, stoke the coals. B, put it in. C, turn the fire. No, that was stoke the coals. Turn the fire on.
Light the fire.
Light the fire. Put the bread in, or when the non-Jew lit it and put it in, throwing in something in or stoking coals. That's the third way of kashmir. So does that apply also to bishul akum? So here we saw Mechlokas, where the Shulchan Aruch Rabbeinu Yonah says no, it does not apply to bishul akum, and therefore what do you need to do? You need to actually take the food and place it on the fire. Comes Raman, he says like the Isser Heter, and he says what? No, same din of pas akum, same as bishul akum. If the Jew does one of the three things, what's the din? It's going to be Mutter B'Is Yisrael, and then the Ramah quotes from a Maharam, and he says that if a non-Jew lights a fire from a fire that a Jew lit, what's the din?
Good.
It's going to be Mutter, and it's going to be considered is going to be considered Bishul Yisrael. Is going to consider Bishul Yisrael. However, the Ramah says that that's only b'diavad, right? Right? That's how the Nosei Kalim say that third case of lighting from an already existing light is only going to be mutter b'diavad. So that was
too late.
what?
At what point is it too late for you to do anything?
Oh, so that's what.
Now we're gonna get.
So that's we're gonna get that in a minute. So that's now. So it
And
comes out.
Sfardi don't accept that ever, right?
None of this. You have to put the fire. You have to put it on the fire. Fine. So at what point, or you can, or you can mix it, stir it.
Even in Shadchat, there's no.
Yeah.
Really Shadchat.
I think so. Yeah.
He says you can give it to a cousin,
You can give it to a kata.
Shadat Chayk rely on the Rambam.
Fine. So it says the. So at what point is Jewish intervention helping? So it says the Shulchan Aruch and Sevav. He says Kol shebishlo Yisrael mat bishlo ben bitchila ben basof. There's the Shulchan Aruch mutal. Right? Lefichach im yiniach ovet kochavim basar al hakdera או על גבי האש והפך ישראל בבשר והקיס בקדרה וגמר העובד כוכבים, הרי זה מותר, it's going to be mutter. Meaning if the Jew partook at any point of the cooking, in Sevav says the Mechaber, what's the din? The din is going to be mutter. So the non-Jew turned the fire on. The non-Jew put the steak on the grill, you came in and you flipped it, even according to the Shulchan Aruch, what's the din? It's going to be mutter. Comes the Shulchan Aruch and Siftas, and he says, if it reaches a level of Michael ben Jusai, Jewish intervention doesn't help. So we asked, isn't it a stira? So the Pri Chadash, which was, he gave a Chiddush, which was a big Chiddush, and he says that in Siftas, where we said that once it reaches Michael ben Jusai, Jewish intervention doesn't help, what's that talking about? Once it was off the fire, meaning you took it off the fire, and now you want to save it and put it back on the fire. If it already reached Michael ben Jusai, then it's not going to help. But if it's still on the fire, even according to Sfardim, even if it reached Michael ben Jusai, it's still going to be mutter. However, the other common explanations is that no, according to the Shulchan Aruch, once it reached Michael ben Jusai, the food is going to be asur, even if you mix it. And then when the Mechaber says Kol shebishlo Yisrael me'at bishlo ben mitchila ben besof, what does besof mean? Besof means right before it reached Michael ben Jusai, and that's how we learned, and that's how a lot of the people learn the thing. Now, what about 1 second? Siv Yud. Siv Yud was another din over here, where we said that if the Jew puts the steak on coals, but the coals are like already burnt out, and they're not going to be able to cook just by leaving it there, and then a non-Jew came and he flipped the coals backwards and forwards, and then it became mutter, and then it got cooked. So what's the din? The din is that's going to be asur. Why? So now the Ramah doesn't comment on here. The Ramah, we said before, that even if it's after Michael ben Jusai, you can mix it. Even if you turned on the oven by accident, says the Ramah, it's also going to be mutter. The Shach argued on the by accident part, but he says that if the Jew did partook in any stage of the game, and there was a hecker that the Jew was involved, it's going to be mutter. So what about in this case, where you put the food on the grill, but the coals aren't hot enough, and then the non-Jew came and he flipped in, because the non-Jew flipped it, the din is going to be mutter. So would the Ramah agree to this or not? So the Shach brought two answers. Some people say that yes, the Shach agreed to it. Why didn't he say anything? Because he already said it before. But the Shach says that la'alacha, even the Ramah is going to agree here that it's going to be asur. Why? Because we're talking about a case where the non-Jew lit the fire, and then you, the Jew, placed it on. But you placed it on where? In a place where it won't get cooked. So what did you batsam do? Nothing, right? You didn't do anything. So since you didn't do anything, what's the din? It's gonna be asur, and who's the one who cooked it? Who's really the guy who cooked it? And therefore it's gonna become asur.
What about seasoning? Is that enough to be? I mean, you can. What's the mean? Seasoning it, like adding salt and pepper, or
Because you're not doing. You have to do an action in the actual thing, right? It's not enough to just add spices to it. Right? Fine. So then we talk about different practical cases. What about an induction oven? So here, when we spoke about an induction oven, so what happens? How does it work? You turn on the induction, but it's still cold. But then when you put the pot on top of the induction oven, what happens? It heats up. So here we saw that a lot of poskim said that it's going to become asur, meaning that even according to the Ramah, where just turning it on the oven is going to be mutter. Here it's not going to be mutter. Why? Because there's no hecker. What's the ma'aseh bishul? The ma'aseh bishul is when you put it on. When did we say? We said later on that maybe you could be makel an induction, and that is if you hold that induction is an ish. If you hold that it's not fire, so then it's going to be mutter, because we saw the Ramah says that it's only. He says delo asru ela bishul shelesh. The whole zero was only by fire, and not by anything else, and therefore it's going to be. And therefore, maybe it could be mutter, but l'maisa, what we said that when the metal heats up and it becomes hot, that could be bishul, like we saw by Shabbos. So that was the induction oven. What about an oven that turns off when it's open? So that we saw that's not considered a numaisa, and therefore it's going to be mutter. What about pilot lights? Pilot lights, if you remember, so it's those lights that are in the middle that are always lit. And then when you turn on the gas, so gas runs through it, and then your stove tops turns on. So here we saw that the Rabbah has two different cases. The Rabbah says that if it's enough to make food bishul Yisrael, if I add wood to the fire, that's going to be mutter lechatchila. However, if I light a fire from an existing flame, that's only going to be mutter b'diavad. So the question is, what's the status of a pilot light? Do we view pilot light that I have a fire here, and then I'm taking gas and I'm adding more gas to the fire, and that gas is spreading to my stovetop, and then what would be the din? That according to the Ramah would be mutter lechatchila. Why? Because what am I doing? I'm adding more fire. Or do we view it as that I have a fire here, and then I have gas here, and I'm taking the fire from here, and I'm lighting a second fire, and then what would be the din? It's going to be mutter only b'diavad, right? Meaning definitely not lechatchila. So comes Rav Moshe, and he wanted to be mikil, and he says no. It's like the first case of the Ramah, where I'm adding more fire. I'm adding more bricks, more wood to the fire, and therefore it's going to be mutter. And therefore a lot of restaurants in America that have still the olden ovens that have pilot lights are somich on this, because the Rav Moshe didn't want to aser. He says I want to say that it's aser, and this is what the OU uses also, and they also use it with another tier if it's in the house, if the restaurant is owned by a Jew, so it's considered Beis Yisrael. Rav Sternbach wanted Rav Sternbach asered a pilot light. He said it's more similar to the second case where it's where you're lighting from existing fire, and he said, and also Shlomo Zalman asered the pilot lights we saw. Because it's like the second case of the Ramah, but what the Chiddush of Shlomo said, he says that even the heter of the Maharam, which the Ramah quotes, which you're lighting a fire from an existing fire, that only helps for once. You can't now cook indefinitely with this fire that you lit from the other fire. Right. Good. Yeah.
Not very
So what are
nice,
they?
but
What?
What's the din if I turn on just normal?
Whoa! We're in the middle. We have like another 10 sifim. We're almost done. No, 4 sifim.
No,
Yeah.
Normal stove.
What? You can go. You guys are free to go. It's not North Korea.
Not pilot.
What?
Whatever. Normal stove. I turn on the gas, and the goy puts like a match, and it makes the induction.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't make the fire. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Next.
if you have an older parent and he has a Filipino, so we said
that's the best thing to do.
One time you can have a candle, but you're only once. I mean, you can't do it all the time. So how does they cook all the time? It can't be just once. Or that's shadchan.
That's
they
only
do it all
Rosh
the
Hashanah.
time.
Yes, that's only Rosh Hashanah. But a lot of people who pass like Ramosh will say that it's going to be mutter.
Fine, but they call that shadchan, and you can do it all the
Correct.
time.
What about longer flame? Longer flame. So here we saw Machlokas. Do I need to do an action that enhances the fire in order to save the cooking, in order to make it bishul Yisrael? But some wanted to bring a raya from Yantiv that maybe you'll be allowed to lower the flame, and that's considered. That's considered what? That's considered ochel nefesh. It's considered ochel nefesh. It's considered part of the my special. It's my special. It's going to be enough. What?
Right, that's what it's
Correct. So therefore, they want to say that if you lower the food, if the Jew lowers the food, it could be that that's considered. That's considered enough. Now, what about a Sephardi in? We're almost done. What about a Sephardi in an Ashkenazi hotel or in an Ashkenazi yeshiva? So here, Rav Vadi says that it's best to be machmer, but those who are mekel in chot v'yadam, why? Because they have a stik, a suffix. Maybe we paskening like the Rishonim who hold that it's enough to do one of the actions that the Ramah holds. And the second suffix is that maybe we paskening that but Beis Yisrael in the house of a Jew is going to be mutter. So therefore you have those. That was where the ikar sfeik, and he says we can be mekel with a sfeik even against the din that's in the Shulchan Aruch because it's a din d'Rabbanan. And then Rosh Hashanah added that in a yeshiva it's going to be even more reasons to be mekel because the person's the Rosh Yeshiva becomes like the person's rabbi becomes like the father of the student, and therefore it's going to be mutter. Fine. So that was Sif Vav. In Sif Yud Aleph, the Ramah says that any suffix when it comes to Bishul Akum, what's the din? It's going to be mutter. Why? Because suffix d'Rabbanan l'kulas. If you have a suffix, it's going to be mutter. Now Sif Yud Beis, we saw small fish. If you have, or really sorry, Sif Yud Gimel. Sif Yud Gimel was that if you have the only isser was on cooking, but if it was salted, kavush, or smoked, what's the din? It's going to be mutter. So what happens if you have small fish that were salted and then they became edible through the salting and then the non-Jew cooked it? So what's the din? It's going to be mutter. But if you have large fish that was salted by the non-Jew and it was only nachal al yidei atchak, which means that after he salted it, you wouldn't like eat it, but you would eat it if you were like really starving. So here the Shulchan Aruch takes two opinions. He's so sim and he says that it's going to be aser. Says, but there are those that are the yesh matir, and he brings the yesh omrim that there are matir in such a case. Meaning, what's the machlokas here? Just to flush it out, something that's nachal al yidei atchak, something that's edible, but it's only edible al yidei atchak, and then a non-Jew, cooks it. So what's the din? Is that going to be mutter aser? So here the Shulchan Aruch paskins that it's going to be aser, and that's why later on he says also in Sif Yudalin and Tisvav that if you have eggs that also people can eat it al yidei atchak raw, or these dates that are very bitter that people can eat al yidei atchak raw, what's the din? The din is that it's going to be aser. Why is it going to be aser? Because it's only it's only nachal al yidei atchak to eat it in that area in such a way. Fine. So that was Sif Yud Gimel and Sif Yud Beis, which is very much l'maisa. Then we spoke about microwave. Is the microwave going to be mutter? Or is it going to be also for guy puts a salmon in your microwave, right? And he cooks it. So is it going to be mutter also, which is so amazing and so awesome. So we saw Rosh Sternberg says that's a way to cook, right? And that's going to lead to kirba. It's going to be aser. But Rav Scheinberg he says no. What was the gzeira? The gzeira was only on fire, and since the gzeira was on fire, so therefore it's going to be mutter. Ask your LOR. And then we spoke about Sif Tes Zayin. What's it then? A guy makes makes kosher food using your pots, right? And he makes bishalakum for his home, right? He knocks on your door and he says, "Hey, I'm making a party now. I just wanna. Do you have pasta? I need to borrow some pasta and some water and your pot, right? So all the ingredients are kosher, and he's making it in his house for his own guests. What's the din? Do you need a kasher the kalim? What? Yeah, says the Mechaber, you need a kasher the kalim. You have to kasher them. Says v'yesh omrim that they don't need, and he says, and even those who say that you need hachshir, you could be machshir what? Pottery. Even though b'darach klal you can't be machshir pottery, like we saw in the beginning 3 hours ago, but now we're saying that you could for this thing you could be machshir pottery. Today, lemaisa, what do people do? So today, people will be makel if it was in your house. Why it was in your house? Meaning, if you have a maid who comes and makes pasta for your kids, and you're like, bishalakum. So why? Because you're being mitzvah the shita of Rabbah Ram that's in the Beis Yisrael. Therefore, it's gonna be mutter, and therefore you won't need kasher. If the guy took it to his house, lemaisa you're gonna have to kasher it. What would be the din if you use that pot? What would be the din if you use that pot for cooking kosher food? Is the food kosher? Yes. Why? Because all you need again is the rove or the ikar, which is the food that you're making. What?
The guy cooks it for himself. He's not cooking it for your kids.
It doesn't make a difference. If he's cooking it in your house, it would still be mutter.
Even if he's cooking it for himself.
Bipashis, yeah, because it's with your orders.
Why is it mutter?
Because it's in Beis Yisrael. What?
No, why is it mutter if you use those pots when you make kasher?
When?
Why if you
it's not mutter to use the pot. If you do use the pot, so the food is going to be mutter because we always go not even by rove, right? Meaning when you have a pot that's treif, so then you need shishim against the blios. Here you don't need shishim. Here what you need is just rove, right? Or the ikar, right? If I mix bishalakum, the thing that, what am I doing? I'm taking the pot from the guy that he cooked it in, and now I'm making my own pasta. Right. So what's going inside? Blios of what he made, and those blios are butter, right?
What about an airplane? Because you're giving the kosher people give them pots or whatever. They don't have pots, but they give them the kelim,
it's all double wrap.
Kosher kelim to make their stuff, and they use the microwave or whatever.
Right. So in the microwave there, it's double wrapped. All the food is double wrapped.
But even then, it's not considered because it's not their kelim.
There are no kelim in a pot. That's another reason, right? They ain't bishul achar bishul. We saw that, right? We saw from the
But we're giving them forks and knives, whatever.
It's already cooked, though.
We're giving them.
It's already cooked.
Forks and knives. We're giving them the plain people, the goyim that are on the plane.
Yeah, what are we giving them?
What kelim are you giving them?
They have to get kosher, like the kelim and the food. Okay, they're both things. We're giving them kosher food and kosher kelim.
They're not baking the food on the plane.
Well,
they're heating it up, right? If it was already cooked, they're eating bishul achar bishul, and therefore there's no problem bishul achar. But the forks and the knives, those are kosher, and those were tovot, hopefully. Unless we say that it's kli schora, we'll get back to that. Fine. That's a full circuit. Now, what about food for a chol on Shabbos? And this is how we end off. This is the end of Siman Tezayit. It says the Ramah that if you have a non-Jew who cooks food for a chol on Shabbos, what's the din? The chola is obviously allowed to eat it. What about you who comes to visit him on Sunday? Is that bishalakum?
No.
It says the Ramah, it's not bishalakum, and even you, the healthy person, are allowed to eat it. Comes the Taz, and he quotes the Rashba, and he says, not only is it usher for you, the healthy person, to eat it, the chola himself also can't eat it. Why? Because now Shabbos is over, it's over. What's the reason the Ramah is mekel? Ramah is mekel is because what's the reason when there's Jewish intervention that it's mutter? Because there's a heker that the Jew is involved. So here, when it was made for a chola on Shabbos, So there's a hecker that it was made for Chol on Shabbos, and it's not going to lead to kirba. It's not going to lead to kirba, and therefore says the Rama it's going to be mutter. It's going to be mutter. The Taz says it's going to be also. In the Mishnah Berurah we saw that there was a stira. Legabe the chola himself, but legabe you, the healthy person, you should definitely not eat from it. And that is it. Okay, so again, so the test. What?
He said about the hotel that the light went out and the guy was flipping his eggs.
yeah.
Not the light, the flame.
Yeah.
Correct.
Said with that.
Yeah.
He cannot continue doing the eggs. Or
He should not continue to do that.
But that sounds like bidiyevit. The eggs, could you eat them in a? Because some people eat them raw.
Yeah,
You
but
think
what did the Rama say?
That's in a bidiyevit case. I'm saying, let's say he cooks your eggs and the pilot went off and he turned it back on. Since some people do eat it raw, maybe not bidiyevit, you could eat those eggs.
He says yesh matirin, but we pass
Thanks for joining us.
We pass like the regular. We pass like